alongside Danny McGreevy Kerber with a week off, a well-deserved week off. He really doesn't take that much time off, Dan. And we have Matthew Rocc in studio. Dan, how are you doing this morning?
I'm fine. I'm a little upset. The middle of Saturday, I'm getting ready to watch and sit down and watch the U.S. Open, watch a little Saturday night college football, and I have DirecTV, and Disney channels were taken off, and there's just a little bit of frustration.
An early sick of it, because the same thing happened to me this weekend where I was ready to watch the game, and then all of a sudden, there it is. I never understand this stuff. I know that they do it on purpose during that time where, of course, it gets people really upset, but why in the world do we have to continue to go through this?
You're asking the wrong guy.
I know. I want answers.
I don't want to see it happen.
Yeah.
I understand why they do it at the right times, because that's when people are getting ready to watch their games and sit down and settle in for a night of college football, which I was, and I'm sure many of our listeners were, and all of a sudden I had no idea that this was going to happen, and then I have no game. Not happy about it.
No.
And I was going to say it's a sick of it. I don't like our sick of it segment. I'm sick of that.
You don't like that?
No, it's first world problems we're complaining about. Come on.
Remember last week with your Starbucks and how that...
I'm going through a drive-through and complaining about taking too long to get drive-through coffee. That's a problem. That's on me. That's. I'm sick of myself.
You see,
be a little bit more righteous and just not complain about service workers and have a different sick of it.
I don't want to complain about service workers.
Well, then don't. I'm not asking. That's not the point. That's not the premise of the segment.
What else is going on from this weekend?
Yeah, it was a long Labor Day weekend. Did you at least enjoy the rest of your Labor Day weekend?
Yeah, did you?
Oh, yeah, I did. I was able to go home and visit with some family, and I'll save that for the three things that we loved from the weekend. But it was great to go back home and see friends and family, and so it was nice. I was thinking, though, what is the traditional way to celebrate Labor Day? Because is there one? It's such like a weird random day off. And I was thinking about it yesterday of, should I be doing something? Because, Memorial Day, you're very patriotic. 4th of July, obviously very patriotic. Labor Day, what are we supposed to do?
I think most of my friends were like barbecues, hanging out, backyards, final time going to a pool.
You take a break from labor. Whatever sounds the best to you in taking a break from your labor, that's what you're supposed to do on Labor Day. That's what it's there for.
I was at a place last night and got something to eat, and she said, "Happy Labor Day," and I said, "But you're laboring."
So it's not a happy Labor Day for you.
It's not a happy Labor Day for you. You're working,
Try to avoid going to places where people have to work, because I feel bad about that.
I do, too. I didn't feel right about that one either.
That was another first world problem.
It is a first world problem. The 618 says, calling to cancel DirecTV today.
Do it.
Yeah, I can't do it. Not yet. They're going to get this thing settled. It needs to get settled by Thursday night for sure.
That's two sides of the same coin. They use you as leverage.
Exactly.
You use your leverage power to cancel it.
It's a rough weekend for my friends.
Oh, no.
And I had to remind my friends to tell them it's the first weekend of a football season. Let's calm it down. However, when we're talking about maybe putting a friendly wager on a game or games, usually the first weekend is not good for my friends, and it wasn't good again this weekend.
No. And what about your friend yesterday and how they felt about Boston College beating Florida State?
They were hoping
28-13, by the way.
So I was told by my friend he put a little higher wager on that game that maybe he'd make up for some of the losses of the previous games, and it didn't go that way. So, yeah, it was a rough weekend in that regard, too, because there were some upsets that and some lines that didn't cover that I thought may cover for my friends, and it just didn't happen.
Was there one that was the most shocking for your friends, of course?
Yeah, yesterday. BC on the road at FSU. FSU coming off a loss. FSU is in the top 10, and they're going to wake up this morning and be out of the top 25. And it happened in the blink of an eye.
0-2 to start the season.
Yeah.
Maybe a little jet lag from going over to Ireland.
Maybe just a QB problem.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest.
He couldn't connect on anybody, and Bill O'Brien brought back a bunch of starters from Boston College, who, by the way, they will play Mizzou.
Yeah.
And the Missouri schedule kind of after 1 week changes a little bit when you think about what you saw this weekend, because BC looked pretty good. Vanderbilt looked very good. Auburn looked good. Arkansas looked good, but we'll know more after they play OSU. So I don't know. It's funny how a season fluctuates and the ups and the downs, and some teams come back and they're well coached. Some teams have QBs that come back that don't play well, like Florida State and their transfer portal situation. So you just don't know moving forward.
Mizzou, if you're listening, especially your defense, learn how to cover the wheel route. For whatever reason, that just really hampered Florida State's defense. It's like they hadn't seen it before.
I will say this, though. The Missouri defense looked as good as anybody's.
They did.
As bad as the opponent was, and it wasn't very good. But still, they played well. And there's other teams that are top 10, top 15, top 25, and they wake up the next day and they go over the tape and they say, man, we got some things to work on. And I'm not saying Mizzou doesn't, but their defense statistically was as good as anybody's in the country this last weekend.
And I know I was out of town because you guys talked about this on Friday, but I was watching the Mizzou game back at home with my dad, and one of the things that obviously you can't complain about a lot when you're able to obviously shut out your opponent and win in that manner, but I think the one thing that stuck out to me was Brady Cook was overthrowing a couple times. I think it counted 3 times when I'm watching the game. So that was my only big concern. I looked back at the replay. I was like, okay, maybe he was under a lot of pressure, and then you saw that he wasn't. So I know it's just kind of more nitpicking more than anything, and he, of course, can grow from game to game. But that was my only big concern. Even the 3 running backs, the way that they were able to utilize them, I thought that was a highlight. Defense, as you mentioned, was wondering what that would look like going into the year, and not a great opponent offensively, but still, I thought Mizzou looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think so, too. I don't know how much you can take away from some of these early games that are against opponents like this, like what Alabama did, like look at any of your top 5 teams and what they did outside of what Georgia did with Clemson, which was, to me, the most impressive win of all of them over the weekend. That was awesome with 34-3 over Clemson.
Yeah.
But, you know, how much are you really showing in your playbook? That's something that I think you question going into some of these games. I think you can nitpick a little bit. Like you said, that's probably the right way to say it with Brady Cook. There was some clock management issues that they had. But for the most part, you know, the thing that I noticed, it was sold out. And it was a great atmosphere. They wound up selling out the game. So all in all, looking good going into week number 2 for Mizzou.
Exactly. And then we'll get into, of course, some Cardinals, because the Cardinals had a great weekend. They were able to win the series against the Yankees, especially that game on Sunday. Everybody's talking about that game on Sunday where all of a sudden they unlocked all this power, especially for Jordan Walker, 5-for-5 day for him, and also hit a home run. And he was able to steal a base. Jordan Walker looked so much more confident, and maybe it has a lot to do with a lot of different variables, but the fact that he's not a platoon bat this time. Ali Marmol saying on Friday, all right, he's going to be playing every single day.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
So he's got to play every day, and that's what we talked about, is that if he's going to be a major leaguer, he's going to have to play every day, and he's going to have to make the adjustment with a pitch that's low and outside and a pitch that is spinning and moving towards the outside portion of the plate, which 2 of the hits he went to right. And if you throw a pitch middle in, he is going to crush it for the most part. He's going to have exit velocity. He's going to lift. He's going to get home runs. I watch a lot of his minor league at-bats. Brooke, if you're just watching here for the next 4 weeks, if he gets a pitch middle, outer half, and he takes it to right, then you're starting to see a guy that's really making adjustments at this level. If he doesn't do that, then it's kind of back to square one. And yeah, he had a 5-for-5 day. Great day for him. But we need to see more of the consistency, you know, of getting a hit every night. Or when you're going in 0-for-4, it doesn't look like you're completely overmatched. He still needs work in the outfield defensively. He's an unfinished product. And on the flip side, a guy that is really caught my attention all year long is Jackson Chirios. I mean, this kid is something for Milwaukee. He has 18 home runs, 67 runs batted in. He's one of the youngest players in Major League Baseball. I just looked it up before the show. He will not be 21 until March. So when you think about like young players that make a difference for a team, and they're the ones that are really getting their team over the hump, he is one of the reasons why right now that Milwaukee is going to win the Central. The Cardinals now, if you're waking up this morning, they're 12 games back in the Central. They're 5.5 back in the wild card. Their run differential is -58, and I started looking at run differential in the final month of the season. I mean, I look at it, but I kind of take it with a grain of salt. And when you look at it now, the run differential -58 is your expected win total then is probably right around 65, 67. So they're actually playing a little bit better than the run differential would indicate. So Not a great day yesterday, and just trying to hang on by a thread and keep this thing interesting down the stretch.
As you mentioned, the Cardinals played against the Brewers yesterday, and they lost in the series opener 9-3. Grand slam, as you mentioned, from rookie Jackson Chourio. I'm curious, too, because that contract, when the Brewers signed him to that contract, a lot of people said, well, this could go a million different ways, right? But it worked out for him. Do you think that that's something that maybe the Cardinals could even do when they're looking at their organization of when you're trying to find a workaround of not having to maybe sign some of those bigger contracts later on, locking up a young talent early?
Well, I guess the candidate would be Mason Wynn. You're going to give it to Jordan Walker?
It doesn't seem like
You're
it.
You're going to give it to Nolan Gorin?
No.
So Mason Wynn would be the one that would, I think, be the guy that I'd look at this point. But, that's not historically what they've done. I think the last time you really have to look at when they did that was Albert Pujols after a year, and then saying, okay, we buy in, we got it. I'd feel comfortable if they did it with Mason Wynn, but anybody else, I don't think he'd feel very comfortable with doing that. I mean, Jordan Walker has a 5-for-5 day and has been up and down this season, and he was a guy you're counting on the entire season, and still you're waiting for him to get established. Nolan Gorman is in the minor leagues. Outside of that, I'm not sure who else I'd look at in terms of my young position players that I'm giving a long-term deal to. Mason Wynn would be the guy.
Yeah, and he embraces being the face of the franchise. That's the big part of it. He said that. And he's put in a lot of work. You've seen that growth, especially this season.
Yeah, I think that's all well and good. I want to see numbers. I mean, being the face of the franchise means putting up numbers. And if you could put up numbers, that means that you'll be one of the guys that they look towards at all times. And so, yeah, I'm going Mason Wynn as if there was a candidate for and maybe they do that this offseason. They've done it before. I mean, they did it with like a Colton Wong after a year or two and trying to figure out and buy out arbitration years. But usually it seems like the MO for the Cardinals has been to wait a year, if not two, and then make that decision as to whether or not to lock somebody up long term.
And Andre Pallante was kind of an off day for him. Obviously, the walks got to him. The 5 walks and 5 innings, gave up 5 runs and 5 hits. What did you see from his outing?
Well, he's got to be able to get right-handers out, and the walks were the problem, and then he started to pick, and he was trying to throw his sinker down and into the right-handers, and it didn't happen. And if he doesn't have that's been the difference with him. If he's going to be a major league player and have success and pitch into a rotation, he's got to be able to not only have the splits against lefties, but also get right-handers out, which means he's got to bear that sinker down and into a right-hander. And if he can't do that, he's going to get crushed. And he left a couple of balls up and did that. I want to go back to the Brewers. And we sit there and say, well, why have the Brewers had success this year? Looking at the numbers, their starters ERA is the best in baseball since June 1st. They have 3 players with 20 or more home runs: Adames, Hoskins, Contreras. Willie Adames, 29 home runs, 99 runs batted in. When you look at what they've done, minus Yelich and minus a manager and minus Corbin Burns and minus Devin Williams, this is why they've won. And I know a lot of people look at other managers in the game to get manager of the year. To me, it's the guy in Milwaukee. With what he's done, with all the losses, he's done a hell of a job.
I was waiting for them to fall through at any single moment. And going back to Pallante, I just want to ask you about this too, because somebody texted this in as well. What do you think of that missed third call strike in the first inning? Because Pallante talked about it a little bit. Obviously, he still has to do what he needs to do, but what did you think of that?
The big leagues.
Yeah. Got to deal with it.
Gonna miss calls.
Yeah, it happens.
Deal with it.
That's another stick of it for you.
Did one call make the difference in the game?
No, there was definitely a lot of other things that happened in that game.
Yeah, I mean, one call did not make a difference in the game. Did it maybe hurt what happened initially? Probably, but do I think it cost them the entire game? Absolutely not.
Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. All right, City SC beating LA Galaxy 2-1 this past week. We have a lot coming up, including the 3 things that we love from this weekend. That's coming up here on the opening drive. Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocco here. Randy with the week off, and hopefully he'll be enjoying it. We have our 3 things that we loved about the weekend. Dan, why don't you kick it off with number 3?
Number 3.
Oh, I jumped the gun. I haven't done these. Do it again, Matthew.
Number 3.
Thank you, big voice guy. Number 3, I think the return of college football. When you had Georgia beat Clemson, I loved what Miami did at Florida, 41-17. Notre Dame's game at Texas A&M with 107,000 people at College Station was awesome. The USC-LSU game was outstanding. USC winning over LSU and Brian Kelly, 27-20. But just the return of college football, which then means the NFL is right around the corner, which then means that pennant races are here in September. So I always talk about, for me, the best time of year is the spring. I love spring because you have spring training, you have playoff hockey. It's just a fun time of year. College basketball wrapping up and the NCAA tournament. But this is like 1A, and it's 1A very closely behind number 1. And the turn of the calendar to September, college football is here, and that's the number 1 thing I take away from the weekend.
I think this is the perfect time of year. I think this is the best time of year for sports fans in general because of everything that you just see. As you mentioned, if your team typically with baseball makes the playoffs, then it's exciting to see that happen. And college football, and that's my number 3 thing. College football in general, if anything, I know it's just week 1, so we have a lot to go here, but all the games, the losses, the shocking wins that you saw, the upsets, if this is how the entire season is going to go, I am completely hooked. It will be must-watch TV for the rest of the college football season, and the NFL is always exciting to me, but college football honestly might be way more exciting this year.
And you have a 12-team playoff.
Exactly.
And that's the crazy thing is, hypothetically, the Seminoles, who are now 0-2 in conference games, yet to reach the ACC title game, could have a spot up for grabs in the college football playoff. That's what makes it look pretty cool. I mean, Miami looked great. Clemson got stomped. The preseason favorites struggled. So the new playoff format gives automatic bids to the 5 highest-ranked conference champions. So technically, Florida State could still be in this thing. Now, they're not, but technically they could be, which I think adds to the excitement of what the college football season is this year.
Can I also give you the 2-parter to my number 3 there? There's something about that I really enjoy. I feel like this is a safe space. There might not be many LSU fans here in St. Louis. I'm sure that there are a couple, but there's something about Brian Kelly and LSU losing that makes me happy.
Why?
Because it's funny, Dan. And he took their defensive coordinator, and he also likes to poach some of the St. Louis area players.
It's simple. He danced with his recruit like a weirdo.
Accent, the fake accent, where it comes and goes, that part really throws me off.
The way he's jumped around teams, it's just, I enjoy watching him lose. It's fun.
Okay.
Number 2.
Is this me?
This is you.
Jordan Walker going 5 for 5. I mean, if you're a Cardinal fan out there and you're saying, man, I want to see what this guy can do, he gave you a glimpse at what he's about and what the hype has been around and surrounded him for so long, for the last really 3 years now. And it's also a what if this guy was there every day, and not saying he's going to go 5 for 5 every night, but being a contributor to their lineup every single day. And Goldie now starting to swing the bat the way that he is. Arenado had a very good August. That is what the team was predicated on, is having those guys, those big 3, be the big 3 in the middle of their lineup, and they weren't this year. And that's why the Cardinals are 12 back in the Central and 5.5 back in the wild card. You know, it's just one of those things. It's great to see this weekend. It's my number 2 thing to watch out for, Jordan Walker, and to see what he did. But for me, it's kind of like, man, what if this guy would have been where he was supposed to be? What if Nolan Gorman was just even hitting 220 but popping 25 home runs? You're talking about this series in Milwaukee in the beginning of September having, a greater meaning than what we're watching right now.
That was actually my number 2. Are we like stealing each other's notes? Or I know that you
just wrote
usually
them
get
in.
mad. Yeah, usually you get mad where you think that I'm taking your notes or
No.
radios, and now I feel like this year or today you're taking my notes.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, but Jordan Walker is my number 2 as well. For him to have that huge moment, Ollie Marmol said that he is able to deal with adversity well. You've heard that from a lot of the other players in that clubhouse too, that he's able to handle adversity well, and it's been a lot of adversity for him this season. And so to have him have that big moment where he was reported, and hopefully it really shows the immense potential that he has, and he can maybe continue. I'm like you. It would be nice. It would help this team out a lot, but I'm not expecting another 5-for-5 day.
And he's just got to play him every day from here on out, see what happens. And that's where I'm going with my number 2.
Number 1.
All right, I'm going off the beaten path here, and probably not a lot of people paid attention to it, nor do they care. But me being a guy that loves golf, I do care about this. Sahith Theegala called a penalty on himself. So he's in a bunker. Can't ground your club in a bunker. You can't even hit just a little speckle of sand, okay? He called a penalty on himself, and it's two-shot penalty. And they can even go back with video and watch to see if, like, you ground your club or did you barely hit the sand. And if so, then they assess the penalty afterwards. And even on television, guys, they couldn't even see it. But he said, nope, I did it. I wound up grounding this club, or at least hitting that speckle of sand. It cost him, with his honesty, $2.5 million. That was one of the best things I'd seen. A lot of players, I would hope, would make that call on themselves. It's a sport that's based on integrity and honesty. You don't pick up everything, but you're supposed to be honest when you play the sport. And I thought, man, that's something, to where they even go back and enhance the video, and they can't even see where he did it, but yet he's calling it on himself, and it cost him $2.5 million.
Wow.
That was a pretty good thing to see.
That is. Well, I was going to ask too, is that maybe do you worry about, even with the enhanced video, that somebody would point it out and people would be like, look, he should have said something about this. But
sure. Yeah, I could see that
especially
happening.
in this day and age in social media, people figure out everything.
Patrick Reed, if you follow golf, is kind of a villain because he's had similar type of situations and has not reported himself, and that's why a lot of people have said, well, he cheats. But this was one that came out to me on the other side, where a guy said, no, I did it, and give myself the penalty, and wound up costing him $2.5 million.
Well, I believe in karma, so maybe it'll work out for him.
Yeah,
in the
maybe
long
so.
run. That's a lot of money to give up, though.
It is.
All right, my number 1 will be being able to watch college football games with my dad. So I went back home this weekend
That's awesome.
and spent time with my parents. And if you guys have been listening, I've been very candid about this, that was how I got into sports. I played tennis my entire life, but I grew up watching and going to sporting events with my dad, specifically college football, Titans games, everything like that. We were watching all the college football games this weekend, Dan, even despite they have DirecTV too. So that was a little frustrating. But still, prior to that, we were able to watch all the college football games. Same couch, same TV. And it just felt like I was a little girl all over again, being able to spend that moment with my dad. And my mom comes in and watches too.
So what's the traditions? What do you guys do? Do you guys have a tradition of games you watch, conference you watch?
Literally everything. He is a sports super fan, so we just sit there and we watch everything.
You watch it, you just flip around.
Yeah.
What's on the menu?
Everything. Mostly college football. He's a big college football fan. Not much food-wise. We really don't do anything. Like, we'll have dinner. They do eat dinner very early, so they eat dinner.
Little blue light specials going on?
They eat dinner around like 2 or 3-ish sometimes. So
Wait
maybe
a minute.
even
Is that
4.
supper or is that dinner?
That's dinner for them, yes.
Like their last
meal of the day. Yeah.
That's really early.
They like to eat dinner really early. So there's not any other traditions.
Hold on.
What dinner was the thing you ate before supper back in the day? I thought you had dinner and then supper.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to figure out. Oh, she's from the South, so I'm thinking like supper, dinner,
Okay.
So hold on here. What do they?
They're going to be so mad that I would say this.
This is why they're so healthy, Dan. This is a smart move. If you eat dinner at 2, you're always intermittent fasting, and that's the smartest way to be healthy.
Here's what I'm trying to figure out.
They're always intermittent fasting. No wonder the Grimsleys are running at a high level.
Do they eat 3 meals a day?
They usually have like a breakfast and then maybe skip lunch and then do that final dinner.
These people are going to live. They're going to outlive
Oh,
me.
there's no doubt
They're
they
I
going
will.
hope
to
they do.
outlive
I hope
me.
that they live a long time. I don't want them to go anywhere.
So,
This is incredible.
so like around 9 o'clock, are they hungry?
They're usually in bed.
Okay, so what time do they
they're
go to
early
bed?
sleepers. Yeah, early sleepers, early risers.
What time do they go to bed?
If there's not football on, my dad will be going to bed at like 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The sunlight's still going.
Yeah. That's what they do.
Okay. Well, he's a military man.
Yes. Marine.
Always a Marine.
Always a Marine.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Thank you for your service as always.
Yeah, he's always listening every single morning. So he's hearing all this right now and probably chuckling that I exposed how early that they eat. But they also like, if they go out to eat, you do get the early bird specials. So they do enjoy the benefits of that.
I bet he could outrun me in like a 3-mile race.
He used to do triathlons after he was a Marine. He did triathlons for a long time.
with the hip.
And so he actually
I'm telling you.
had to get his back replaced
No, I'm
or
telling you,
fixed
he's got
and his
me.
hip replaced, both knees replaced. So yeah.
I think he might. At this point, I think he might still have me. I'm legitimately worried that I could get beat up by the Grimsley parents at this point.
Yeah, so that's what we did. We don't have really any food traditions. Maybe used to, he would make like homemade pizza or something like that, but we
Yeah.
just really just sit around the TV, same couch, same TV, everything, and
I want to
watch
meet
it.
this man.
They'll come to town soon.
All right, bring him in studio.
I will.
I would love to meet him.
Dad's listening
Shake his
right
hand
now.
and thank him for his service.
I will.
I mean that. I take that seriously.
He has some great stories that he can share too.
I bet he would be fired up then on. I can go off the beaten path, right? Mm-hmm. On Friday, it is a Folds of Honor Friday for the first time ever at a golf event at the Ascension Charity Classic, and they're going to play the national anthem for the beginning of the whole thing this Friday.
Oh, nice.
It's never been done before. Now, if you go play, I cannot remember. I know somebody on the text line will help me. Lieutenant Colonel Rooney, Dan Rooney of Folds of Honor. There's a specific golf course that is just magnificent. And at a certain time every day, everybody stops in the golf course and they play the national anthem. Mm-hmm. But you do it for all these sporting events, but you don't do it for golf. And they're going to do it for the first time at the Ascension Charity Classic this Friday.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
It is.
Which Folds of Honor affords a lot of scholarships to the children of the fallen soldiers, the men and women that have died in service, and it's just an unbelievable organization that Randy's a part of and does a lot with. So if you're out there Friday, check it out. It should be pretty cool.
Everybody should go out to the Ascension Charity Classic. It's so much
awesome.
fun. It's
so much
such
fun.
a great event.
Yep.
One of my
fun.
favorite in town. Well, that was our 3 things that we love from the weekend. Coming up next, Steven Matz is returning to the starting rotation. He will be starting for the Cardinals today. But is that the right decision? We'll discuss that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocc with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals, with a little bit of an up-and-down weekend, they took 2 of 3 from the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. A lot of positivity there, but unfortunately on the holiday, they got shellacked by the Brewers, getting beat 9-3. Andre Palante in the start goes 5 innings pitch, gets 5 hits allowed, 5 earned runs, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts, and then those 2 big homers allowed. The Cardinals will be back in action tonight with a 6:40 first pitch in Game 2 against the Brew Crew. It'll be the lefty Steven Matz facing off against the righty for the Brewers, Aaron Savali. Savali on the season 5-8 with a 4.59 ERA. Matz on the season 1-2 with a 6.18 ERA. That is just through 27 2/3 innings pitched. Also over the weekend, St. Louis City SC back in action in MLS, and they get a huge 2-1 victory over the top team in the West, the LA Galaxy. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Returning to the starting rotation today. He will get the start today against the Brewers. His last start was on April 30th when he suffered a back injury. And before you guys say it, before Rocc says it, I know Randy's not here, but no, it was not a week back. It was obviously a lot further back than that. So now this gives Eric Fedde an extra day off. He will start Friday against the Mariners, and Sonny Gray will start in the series finale. And so the Cardinals are running with a 6-man rotation one time through as they're reevaluating also Lance Lynn. We could get in that too, because Lance Lynn, by the way, in his last rehab start this past weekend was not great, Dan. Allowed 7 hits, 5 earned runs, and 2 walks, and 3 2/3, and that is not ideal. But with Steven Matz, does he not seem like the ideal bullpen piece? Were you surprised that they didn't go bullpen first for him instead of doing the starting rotation?
The answer to the first question is he does seem like the ideal bullpen piece for me. But looking at the rotation and the way it may play out next year, you could have Gray. I'm going to put Palante in there, Miles Michaelis, Eric Fedde, and Steven Matz. I mean, on paper, you may have your rotation for next year, and that does not include bringing back Kyle Gibson, does not include bringing back Lance Lynn, as you mentioned, not very good in his last rehab assignment. I think more than anything, you're just looking at a veteran trying to come back and be healthy, much less the numbers. And that's the way I have to look at it with Steven Matz. His numbers weren't great on these rehab assignments. And I think the Cardinals are trying to figure out, it's twofold, is one, to give Fedde an extra day, but also, what do you have in Steven Matz? You know, give him a few times out here for the remainder of this season and try to figure out and salvage something out of this contract, which has not been very good because he can't stay on the field. And that's the biggest problem. He just cannot stay healthy.
He can't stay healthy. And we were actually looking this up, and Rocc found it, because the last time that he was fully healthy was when he was in Toronto in 2021, before he came over to the Cardinals, where he had 29 starts in 29 games. And since then, it's been injury after injury after injury. And even if you go back to the beginning of this year, the Cardinals even tried kind of limiting his time in spring training, and they kind of set him back a little bit, hoping that maybe he would be fully healthy going into the year, and he still wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, and that's an issue, is staying on the field. I mean, your best asset is your availability to take the ball every 5 days. 314 says, guys, for next year, don't you have to also take in any consideration that Matz will be out 75 to 90% of the year with an injury? And the thing is, as tough as it is to say this, I think you have to be ready and back plan your rotation and backfill it as much. If you're planning on him being in the rotation, you have to have a guy that's 6, 7, 8 in your minor leagues that are ready to come up and contribute. Now, is that Quinn Matthews? Is that Graceffo? Is that somebody else? I don't know. You're going to try to find out more about them. But at least from recent history, I don't know if you can count on Steven Matz taking the ball every 5 days because of his recent track record here in St. Louis. You just can't.
I think that's really fair, because if you just look at it, that's what you're seeing right now, is that it's just injury after injury after injury with him. My whole opinion is, honestly, I think he should have just gone to the bullpen for the rest of the year. I mean, I know that it's $11 million, I believe, for what he costs you.
That's a great price for a bullpen arm.
At this point, he's very useful typically out of the bullpen. If you looked at last year, it was just a very small sample size, but when he did come out of the bullpen in 16 innings over 8 appearances, Matt had a 2.81 ERA, and he looked pretty strong coming out of the bullpen.
Let's just say, for argument's sake, you're going to cut payroll. And if you're going to cut payroll, then he fits in your rotation. If you're not, then he's a perfect bullpen arm at $11 million.
He can still fit in your that's why the question is about a start today, because he still fits into the payroll at $11 million as a bullpen arm next year if one of the people in your 5-man rotation is making, $500,000 because he's 23 years old. And so if it's Michael McGreevy because he gives you a great start a month ago and you give him another start today, and let's say he gets 5 starts by the end of the year, and you say, okay, this is a legitimate young pitcher that we can maybe grade out getting 20 starts next year, because the way they don't like to accelerate the innings more than like 50 or 60 innings from year to year. So you can say we can give this guy 22, 23 starts next season and maybe fill out the other half of the Matz equation, because you were not expecting him to be healthy. And so I just think, why not have both an idea of right now we're trying to still win some games, so we put him in a pitcher who we have seen can get a major league win, and think for the future, which is we don't have it completely set in stone what our starting 5 is next year. It's a little malleable, and I don't think $11 million, even when you're cutting costs, is a prohibitive cost for a bullpen arm in 2025.
And this truly may be just a spot start. I mean, that's the other thing. You may be looking into it way too much where, okay, it's a chance to get our guy back, get his feet wet, make him a starter for this one time out, and then after that, we move him back to the bullpen, and then Fetty re-enters the rotation, and then we'll figure out Lynn when that time comes. And I think that's maybe part of what's going on here, too. I really do.
But, I mean, it's September. Why not give one of the young guys this start? If it's going to be a spot start, why not see what you have from guys who, this would be different.
Because I still need to figure out what I got in Matz.
I feel like you know what you got in Matz. And again, it's a guy who's as we've seen in small amounts of innings, small amounts of games, we see a guy whose ERA is a whole point better and whose batting average allowed, slugging percentage allowed, OPS allowed is 30 to 50 points better when he coming out of the bullpen in the last 2 years, 2 years worth of sample sizes that we have. We know he's better, and we know that you don't have a lot of young pitchers, but we know that Michael McGreevy showed something. I'm not saying he was dominant. Obviously, he doesn't have the strikeout, velocity that they want from guys. They've talked about upping that in the organization. He doesn't have that, but he showed something. And if he hadn't showed anything in that start, I'd say okay. And if this was just a conversation about Graceffo, who looked better in his second start, but still not as good as McGreevy, I'd say fine. Maybe I'm just being hopeful here and I want to see a young player. But McGreevy showed something, and I just want to see more of it instead of another opportunity for Steven Matz, which, again, I think he can be a useful pitcher for this Cardinals team. I just don't know if it's as a starter next season.
And they may have that plan real quickly. They may have that idea, Rocc, and I think maybe this also might be where they want to get the Major League eyes staff to look at them and just see what they have and then go with the idea that you're talking about down the stretch.
Yeah, I do agree with you that I think that at this point, Steven Matz, you have seen enough of him. When it comes to the start rotation, we've also seen the health, and that's nothing against him. You could still get a lot of use out of him just in the bullpen. I am ready to see the youth movement. I also want to see what you have with Michael McGreevy. I want to see what you have with Gordon Graceffo more than just one start. I want to be able to evaluate them too, because at what point do we know what those guys are?
Yeah, and you're getting to the point where you got to start figuring that out.
Yeah.
They're at the ages.
Graceffo's like 26, I believe, or
25, 26. Yeah. I mean, you're getting to that point where you got to figure these guys out. Yeah, I can't argue those points and argue against them. I think I see it all different way. And that's what the view I try to take is like, I'm not going to hot take and say, just release this guy and get rid of him and all that.
Why not, Dan?
I'm just not going to do it. So I look at it as Major League staff gets a look at him today. Then maybe you put him back into your bullpen. And then at that point, when you're officially, because I don't think you can go with a semi-youth movement like they're doing here with Jordan Walker. They're going to say, look, we're going to play you every single day, but we're still in it mathematically. You have to still play the games out until you are out of it and completely out of it. I mean, if you're 5.5 games out with 6 teams to jump to get with 2 weeks to go, you're out of it. Now, are you out of it right now? Yeah, probably, but you can't play it that way. You still got to put your best foot forward and have a chance to win.
The problem is you use the word semi somewhere in there, and I think that's the issue with Cardinals fans right now is they don't feel like they still feel like the Cardinals, as they have now for, let's call it, almost 5 years, they've kept a foot in both camps, and they refuse to go and say, we are going this way or we are going that way. It's always been a foot in both camps. And I understand that to a point, and it's a reasonable thought process, but I'm specifically talking here from the fan perspective. That's why fans are angry now, is because
I think
there's no scope for next. It does not feel like the fans' view towards the future is anywhere near the same view as the organization's view to the future. I think that's where the big split is, and why you're seeing the crowd you're seeing right now.
I think if you said the fans were going all youth the rest of the season, I think they'd buy in.
I agree 100%.
I think they'd say,
and that's
okay,
why I think this is a mistake. I think an obvious chance to get a young pitcher or start and say, this is part of it. Look at Mason Wynn. Look at Jordan Walker.
But you still got a little time to do that. I just think you make it one start and then see where it goes. And then at that point, reevaluate, put him in the bullpen, but have the major league guys, the staff wants to see him, and they haven't seen him all year. And you still have another year in him. You got to figure out a little bit of what you got coming back. And you're laughing at me, but
yeah, because what at this point, objectively,
because he's coming back next year.
No, I'm saying as a fan, if I'm a fan watching the Cardinals.
Okay, now you're talking from a fan's perspective.
I'm just saying, objectively, when you say that, my thought process is, okay, what has the Major League staff done when it comes to player evaluation and development over the last 5 years? That makes me think the delineating factor is going to be finally them getting their eyes on Steven Matz. That would be my question from the outside looking in, because we've seen so many pitchers not get better when they've returned over the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, I think with Steven Matz, they know what they got for the most part.
But so why do they?
Because they need to see how, number one, his stuff is playing at this point in the season. And does his stuff play as a starter, or would they rather see it as a reliever? And that's where I'm at.
That's not what spring's for?
Sure, you can do it in the spring. Yeah, you can do that then. But I think they want to see what they have now, too. You got a little time to play with it, and then bring up some of the young guys that you want and have a spot start and see what you got with them, too.
What is it, 6.5 in the wild card?
Let me look it up, Rocc. It is now 5.5 in the wild card.
My bad. Sorry, I was being pessimistic. My apologies.
And you're
not as bad. Is it 12
you're only
games
12
behind?
back in the Central.
Division. So maybe you do know. Can I also add just one more point there, too? I think some of the other outside criticism is that the Cardinals maybe hold on to certain guys for too long when maybe the picture is clear of who they are.
Yeah. So what do you think Steven Matz is right now?
A bullpen piece.
I'm with you. However, looking ahead to next year, and if they do slash payroll, which seems like that the writing's on the wall that it's going to happen, then you have a rotation that currently on paper would have Gray, Palante, Michaelis, Matz, Fetty. That doesn't include Graceffo, which he's going to get some time. Somebody will get hurt. Maybe Quinn Matthews gets some time. I'm just saying we haven't seen Steven Matz all year. It's one start. It ain't that big a deal. And then at that point, reevaluate and see where you're going to put him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I'm at. Everybody's going to throw. I need a duck. I need to get out of the studio here.
You know you don't. That's Dan. That's Rocc. And I'm Brooke. Coming up next, we have our take it or leave it. So get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646.
Yo ho.
314-399. Yo ho. Take it or leave it is next.
something. We'll put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocc here. It is time for Take It or Leave It. So get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646. 314-399-YO-HO. It's time for Take It or Leave It. Dan, what do you have?
Okay, take it or leave it. The Major League Baseball schedule is a mess. For instance, yesterday, with everybody looking for something to do, maybe something to watch, waiting for football at the end of the night, there was not a full schedule of games, a full slate of games. Take it or leave it. That's ridiculous. On Labor Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, you have to have a full slate of Major League games.
Oh, I am taking that. I don't understand why you wouldn't.
I don't either. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. And the other thing that's kind of interesting, that something that's been floated out there, is that there is talk now, this is kind of a second part of scheduling, that the NFL is looking at doing a Labor Day kickoff. They would play on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You in?
I'm in, 100%.
I don't know. I'm in, but it takes away from the first week of the college football season, and then it just kind of whets your appetite a little bit for the first week of the NFL season.
You mean the NFL's being greedy, where they might want to take away from some of the college football money that's coming in? No way.
Just have a little patience before you kick off your season. It's going to be here before you know it.
They want more money.
No,
they see the money that college football makes with all those games. So, yeah, I can definitely see why they want to take advantage of that. So, take it or leave it. Billy Napier, I'm going to stick with college football. Billy Napier will be the first head coach firing in the SEC this year.
Take that. And after what happened against Miami, I'm thinking in the swamp, getting your butt kicked, in-state rival, to where the Miami Hurricane players are going over to the recruits of the Florida players and shaking their hands and taking selfies. And then his post-game comments in which
we'll get to those.
He's talking about some guy being on the internet in his basement. They don't have basements in Florida, by the way.
They don't.
That's a problem. He'd be my guy that's going to get fired first.
I think he's the first on the chopping block, and we will be
you haven't
talking
really been
about
in too
that.
many houses in the middle of Florida, have you there, Billy?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah, he said Central Florida is what he said. We'll talk about that at 8:45 because we have that sound. We have Brian Kelly also imploding in that game. But I feel like Billy Napier is on the way out because the fan base is definitely angry, which we know. Fans are always going to be very reactionary. But anytime that you go after fans, just real quick, can this be like a learning lesson for everybody in sports, okay? Never a good idea to go after a fan base and blame them in any way.
Period. End of story. Never go after the fans.
Has there been an occasion where that's worked out?
We should talk to Greg Hamster.
I had to quit looking at social media, Dan. People were so mad at him.
Yeah. Without fans, you don't have the sport.
No, exactly. All right, what do we have on the text line, Rocc?
Says you. Take it or leave it. Mizzou will lose a game by or before Week 5. Their schedule leading up to Week 5, by the way, is they host Buffalo. They are at Boston College. They host...
They host BC.
Yeah, they host BC, they host Buffalo, they host Vanderbilt, and then they go to Texas A&M. After 3 home games, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt, and then Texas A&M away. Those are their games by or before Week 5. Do they lose any of those?
No.
Essentially BC or Texas A&M.
No, I hope not. But I will say, I don't think a lot of these teams are going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah, we got another take it or leave it. Like, are you worried about the Boston College game now that they've beat FSU? We knew Boston College was going to be better than a lot of people were going to give them credit for. A lot of returning players, a good coach, and so I'm not that surprised. I think also we have to wait and see how bad is Florida State actually. Georgia Tech just beat Georgia State big, which doesn't say anything. So we don't really know like how bad is actually at FSU. I'm not sure at this point.
I haven't been to a game at Columbia in a long time. I'm curious what their game presentation is like now compared to
unbelievable compared to back.
Yeah.
I'll just compare to when they got there in 2013. the last 10 years, it's been unbelievable the steps they've taken. And then you still then look at Alabama, and it's like, oh, wow, we still got a long way to go.
Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So it's impressive what they've done in the last 10 years. But progress still to be made.
Okay.
But you have
That's
that
fair.
big paycheck coming in for the stadium upgrades.
Yeah. How does that enhance game presentation? More butts in the seats. That's what I want to see. A bigger atmosphere is going to lend itself to being louder.
Again, I think we might have mentioned this on Friday. It's just Murray State Week 1 10 years ago is a 22,000 person game.
Yeah.
And now it's a full 60. Like that's not nothing.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Take it or leave it. On gas pumps, the TVs on gas pumps need to go. I enjoy the busy quiet and might strike up a conversation with a stranger. I've never taken anything more so in my entire life. I hate those things with a passion.
And you also want to take the portion of striking up a conversation with a stranger?
Depends on the kind of day I'm having.
Come on, this is you, Rocc.
I was like, wait a minute. There's a two-parter to this.
Stranger. As soon as they say something that pisses me off, then I'm out. But
then
still,
you're not engaging
I don't mind a conversation with a random stranger.
How about, I think it would be more of a confrontation with a random stranger over sports.
You guys just paint me with a really negative brush.
You like to have open dialogue in your conversations that include a little edge to them. I think that's fair.
A little spice, if you will.
I don't do that to random people I strike up conversations with on the street, you weirdos.
I just imagine him at the gas pump and it would be like just some hot takes. So you want to start Steven Matz again?
Exactly.
What do you think?
What do you guys think I'm doing there? It's almost like I'm in a theater right now or something.
I will take the portion of the TVs always catch me off guard. All of a sudden you're pumping gas and then it's just loud right there.
I just don't like the multiple questions that I get. Do I want a car wash? No. Do I want my receipt? No. Am I enjoying this video? Not really.
Just get me out of here.
Just let me pump my gas.
Yes, I agree with you on that one. We got one more?
Yeah. The only positive, take it or leave, the only positive about Florida's football team right now is that they're not Florida State.
Aren't they playing each other this year?
The last time that both Florida State and Florida lost their openers in-state was 1974.
Oh, goodness. Good gracious.
Yeah, it's been a long time since those teams have lost at home their openers.
They close out their regular seasons against each other on November 30th.
Winless teams, Rocc, or are we going to have some wins mixed in?
Florida, their schedule is hellacious.
It is tough.
If they're if they're 2-9 going into that game, I'm not shocked.
Yeah. I wouldn't be either.
Maybe not 2-9. That's pretty bad. Yeah, if they're 3-8 or 4-7, I think that'd be the smart money for that final game. It's going to be rough there in Florida. It's a hellacious schedule. I mean, respect if you can play it, and you can respect to them for scheduling it. Mizzou fans talk like they want that schedule. I don't. I'll be honest. But good for them. It's going to be a rough year.
Would you guys rather see the big hitters like USC and LSU early in a season, or do you want to see these cupcakes and then just get the blood donors to show up, they get their payday, and then you move on? At least they mixed in a few of the big ones, like Texas A&M, Notre Dame was great.
Yeah.
USC and LSU was great in Vegas. So you did have a little sprinkling of some good games, but man, some of these early games are brutal to watch.
I think that just specifically for maybe Mizzou fan base, I would want to see some of these easier teams early on so that you can build up going into SEC.
Have your preseason, so to speak.
Brooke exactly took the words out of my mouth. Like, I want to pump up my chest and be like, I want 12 competitive games every year that are hard. No, I want 2 cupcakes for some preseason and then maybe 10 competitive games.
Now, the one way to look at it though is with a 12-team playoff, if you'd lose that, like LSU is not out of it. They're not. And
because of the quality.
That's a good thing.
The schedule.
And you can have a couple losses and still get in.
Mizzou can still lose 2 and still get in.
Yeah.
And they have 3.
So
they
then
have 3 quality opponents on their schedule.
Lend itself to having better schedules early in the season. Now, the blood donors, that's how they fund their sports programs. That's the other side of it.
That's the big thing.
You need to have those teams show up and take their beating and go home and take their $1.2 million too.
And it's not like the gap between those teams and the Power 5 teams are going to get smaller over the next 10 years anyhow. It's going to get bigger. And so if anything, you're going to need those blood donor games to keep athletic programs alive. We did get a lot of texts that I didn't know said you can mute those TVs.
I didn't know that.
You can.
I had never actually realized that you can mute the TVs. We got a lot of texts, so I kind of feel dumb that I didn't know that now. Because we got a lot of texts that are like, you guys know you can mute them, right? No, I didn't. You got me on this one.
I usually kind of like scurry in and out quickly at the gas station.
I'm in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get my stuff done and move out.
You guys still go into the gas station? What, so you have to talk to another human? Oh, God, who would want to do that?
You got to get a cup of coffee.
And you said that you would strike up conversations with strangers at the gas station. What are you talking about?
Yeah, not the poor guy who has to work there. He has to work there. Are you kidding me? I leave them alone. Those people who have to work. Don't talk to them. Go in there, pay for your gas, walk out. And if anything, pay for your gas at the pump so they don't have to deal with human beings during their shift.
But sometimes you have to get a little snack. No. So what am I supposed to do? Not get a snack?
Deal with people who make deal with workers like that as little as possible. They have a hard job and a rough day.
Now, when you go somewhere, Rocc, do you get into it with somebody, or do you have casual conversation? Just nice, easy, casual conversation.
A random person?
Yeah.
Nice, easy, casual conversation.
Look at Brooke laughing.
I'm dying.
Unless there's a reason for me.
There you go.
I like the way you asked that question.
Out and about in the world,
There
I'm
were so
actually
many
very...
things that you were implying
Actually,
there.
I was not.
Out and about in the world, I'm very non-confrontational.
But behind closed doors, we get the best of you.
No. Behind closed doors, also fairly non-confrontational. In front of a microphone, that's where things go.
Oh,
Or a
that's where the
keyboard.
show goes.
Keyboard, yeah.
Yeah, you get after it on the text line.
That's how the show works.
We're like,
In front of a
Rocc, we need to go to a break. You're like, hold on, I'm finishing up going after some texter.
Yeah, because some of these texters, I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of that argument getting out on the air, but I can't just let it go by.
You got to let it go by.
I can't do that.
Let people get things off their chest.
No. That's too. Sometimes they're just too. I don't want to use. Sometimes we need to have a conversation.
Just too much.
Me and them need to have a conversation. Is all I'm saying.
All right.
There you go. All right, Rockio out there teaching people lessons.
Life
having
lessons
those
from
hard
Rocc.
Conversations. Thanks, Rocc. Coming up next, we have our fresh take. Should the Cardinals go hands off with Jordan Walker and just let him continue to work through adversity? We'll discuss that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's a Tuesday morning. It's Danny Mac for Stewart's American Mortgage. If you're someone who is looking to purchase a home or refinance, if you're someone looking to consolidate some of that ugly credit card debt, maybe you don't know exactly what direction to go to in any of these things, let's make it easy for you. Call Stewie from Stewart's American Mortgage. He's going to help you every step of the way. If it's a new home you're looking to purchase, he'll get you to the closing table fast. Try 10 days. He'll get you the best interest rate possible. He also has the bagel loan that can help you out too. So what's the bagel loan? If you borrow $200,000 or more, there's no underwriting fees, no appraisal fees, no title fees, no lender fees, and no closing costs. He makes it easy for you. That's Stewart. Any questions on the rates, the industry, the trends, give Stewie a call. Call him directly on his personal cell phone, 314-324-4440, 314-324-4440, or you can Google the bagel loan.
NMLS number 226715.
It's the opening drive's fresh take.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocc here. Randy Carricker with the well-deserved week off. And our fresh take today, Jordan Walker, as we saw this weekend, he did pretty well, especially on Sunday. He had a 5-hit day, and he was able to really showcase some of that power that we were hoping to see from him. The Cardinals have really talked a lot about how well Jordan Walker can handle adversity. And Dan, he's had plenty of that this year. Definitely has been a yo-yo year for him. He started out the year with the team, and then he hit like 155 in 20 games, and they sent him back down. And then he was recalled in mid-August as a platoon bat, but he was sent back down because, of course, they didn't have enough at-bats for him. Now with Tommy Pham gone, it really has opened that door for Jordan Walker to be back where he can get those at-bats. And we said earlier, Ollie Marmol mentioned that he will be playing every day, which is something that I think a lot of us love to hear. From this point on, if you're the Cardinals, do you just kind of go with a hands-off approach of Jordan Walker, or is there things that they're still working on with him here at the major league level?
Well, I think you constantly work every day something with him, and that includes his defense. I mean, he's still not a finished product out in right field. So I think he's such a young kid. He's 22 years old. You're working on something with him every single day. You're going out in right field, talking with Willie, doing different things with Willie McGee. Then it becomes what you're doing at the plate and working on things behind the scenes. But then it becomes to the ultimate test, which is playing every day, playing in live action. And I like the fact that they came out and made it public where they said, we're not going to yo-yo you. You know, you're going to wind up playing every day. And I think that's a vote of confidence for him, so that when you go for 0 for 4, and he's going to have these nights where he goes 0 for 4 and he's in an 0 for 10 and doesn't have to look over his shoulder. Now, does that mean he sits there and plays every single night from here on out? Probably not, because you need to build in a day or two just to kind of refresh and make sure that he doesn't get buried if things aren't going well, and then try to find out matchups that when you look at a guy, for instance, if he has a real nasty sweeper, a really good slider, And it's maybe time for a day off. Would I sit him against that player or that pitcher? Probably, just so I don't put him in situations where he's completely overmatched. But it's getting to the point where you need to play him every day, let him grow, let him continue to get better, and I think that's the right way to approach the situation.
Does he look a lot different to you than when we saw him, obviously, earlier in the season in April?
No.
Really?
To me, he looks the same. I mean, there needs to be an adjustment with pitches that are sliders, sweepers, anything breaking ball, outer half. And if he can make that adjustment. Now, the one thing that looked different on the 5-for-5 game was twice going to right field. That was different. If he's not pulling off pitches, then that would be different for me. But at times, the swing looks the same, body looks the same stance for the most part. I haven't seen much of a difference there. It's an adjustment period, making sure he can handle outer half. If he can do that and take the ball to right or lay off those pitches, then the adjustment will have been made.
Do you think, looking back, and I know that you could point to production-wise for him, obviously why he was sent down in April, but do you think that they should have just let him work through the adversity for the rest of the year? Or because there were so many different things going on in the outfield, that was just the situation that happened? Because I look at Corbin Carroll with the Diamondbacks. He didn't get off to a great start this year. I think he was hitting below 200, maybe like 193 to start the year, and the Diamondbacks didn't send them down. They let him work through it. And I know that Nolan Gorman is another example. If anything, I think they let him stay too long. But the difference to me was that Nolan Gorman wasn't really connecting well when you're talking about the amount of strikeouts that he was piling up.
But you couldn't carry a guy and I don't care if it's Jordan Walker or Albert Pujols, you can't carry a guy that's hitting 150.
Yeah.
I mean, he was lost at the plate, and you're trying to win a pennant. You're trying to win a division. You're trying to get into a wild card. And I'm all about developing young players and seeing them graduate to the big leagues and have success, but not at the expense of the team, even if it's your number one prospect. And I thought they gave him a pretty good run and saw some things that were glaring. And if it was something that they felt like, okay, this could be worked through and eventually get through at the major league level, he would have stayed here. They obviously felt that wasn't the case, that he was really lost. And so I'm not going to sacrifice a year just because we need to develop Jordan Walker. He's going to have to develop in the minor leagues. And remember, he hadn't had any time at AAA either. So that was the other thing is, send him back down, let him get the confidence, let him not dominate AAA, but have success at AAA, which he did, and then bring him back up. But I don't think they handled him in that way when they first took him down. I didn't like the way that it went back up when he came back up and saying, okay, you're going to platoon and all that. I always felt like if you're going to play at this level, you should play every single day and not have a 22-year-old sitting on the bench. But if he's hitting 150 and can't hit the ball and can't hit a pitch that's outer half, then he's not doing you any good and you're not doing him any good.
Real quick, also with the outfield this weekend, we saw that Michael Ciani is back, and they decided to limit some of the playing time of Victor Scott II, and he will be working with Pop Warner and Willie McGee on defense and Pop Warner on base running. What do you think about that decision?
Well, Michael Ciani's 25 years old. I got to find out if he's a everyday player, and I'm still going to try to find out with Victor Scott. But I have two pretty good options right now. But I mean, am I sold that Michael Ciani's my everyday center fielder going into next year? Probably not yet.
When he was up, it was great to see that his bat was starting to develop, but I thought Vias too was doing a pretty good job.
He was, but I'm still going to let those two fight it out, and I'm still trying to find out more about Michael Ciani as I move forward in this season.
Yeah, so that's something that we'll have to watch for. Coming up next, we are going to look at how much money has changed college football. We'll talk to national football writer John Talty about the price college football is paying next year on the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocc here as we head to the celebrity line to talk to John Talty, a national college football writer for CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. And he has a new book out that is called The Price, What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos. John, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, and so I was looking at the overview of your book, and I'm always curious with writers how you come up with the name of the book, much like a headline for an article. In a few words, it has to capture the reader's attention and cover the point of the story. And your title, in my opinion, is obviously very clear of what the readers can expect. So what is the price that college football is paying right now, especially with money when you're looking at the NIL era, boosters, I mean, everything, TV money? It really is a big part of college football right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I might be a little bit biased, but I love the title of the book. And, if you've seen it, like, I love the cover of the book. I think it really shows in part what we're trying to do. But I think with the title, we're really trying to accomplish two things. I think it's all the things that you just mentioned. I think it's with NIL, it's all the money that, of course, is involved with that. And, players now getting paid legally, for the first time these last couple of years. It's the TV money that has flooded into the sport and completely reshaped, the map of college sports that we know. And we write quite a bit about the Pac-12 implosion and what happened to get us to that point. But I also think it's the price that people are paying to try to survive in this world. It's the long hours. It's the unrelenting recruiting trips. It is all the pressure. It is having players coming into your office and demanding money or they're going to leave. So there's the dollar sign price of it, but then there's the physical, mental, and emotional price of trying to survive in this current world. And I think one of the reasons why we wanted to write this book is that there's just this interesting dichotomy between, in some ways, the sport has never been more popular and TV ratings are booming and there's so much excitement, especially as we start here in the beginning of the season. But on the flip side, we talk to all these different people, coaches, ADs, others within the sport, and I don't know that the frustration has ever been higher. And so it's just the sport is in this very weird place where, in one hand, it's never been better, and other hand, a lot of the people within it have never felt it's been more stressful or more pressure-filled.
As I'm watching game day, I'm watching Nick Saban, and I'm wondering myself, how in the hell did he do it for all these years? How did he get through all this? And maybe because of all the things you just said, this is why we're watching Nick Saban on the other side of the mic, so to speak.
100%. I think that you watch him on TV, he still looks good. He's still on it. I think he had a couple more years in him in the sport for sure. And his contract, was built to be that. But I think that the change in the sport played a huge role in ultimately his decision to leave. Nick Saban's a guy who loves control, and this is an uncontrollable world right now in college football. I think that with the lack of any sort of, contracts or rules, the NCAA, we write about the NCAA enforcement team in the book, they're unable to enforce any rule really right now when it comes to NIL. And so it's just a free-for-all. And for someone who likes to control their schedule to the very minute, who likes to eat the same thing for breakfast and lunch every single day, someone who wears the same Yankee shirt every time he goes on his boat, even though he probably owns a million shirts. Like, this is a guy who loves structure and loves rhythm and loves control. And I think he tried to adapt and evolve, but ultimately was not able to get there. And he's not going to be the only one who's going to leave. And, within that, it'll open up opportunities for other coaches and programs that are more willing to embrace this new world. But I think we're seeing part of the old guard leave the sport. We've seen it in college basketball for sure. And, Nick Saban was, I think, a massive loss for college football that he's, not in the game, though I think it's still fun for people that we get to see him on game day now.
And you were able to cover Nick Saban extensively throughout your career. And you touched on it there where we're going to see a lot more coaches leave. We've already have seen that. I know that, of course, there's a lot more things going on with Jim Harbaugh, but we saw Jim Harbaugh go to the NFL, and I think some other college coaches are following suit. When you were doing your research for this book, were you hearing from even newer coaches and older coaches that was one of the big driving things is just all of the NIL and kind of the money, the transfer portal, just how it's turned into essentially the wild, wild west?
Yeah, I think it's that recruiting never ends, and that's in part because of the transfer portal and graduates, guys leaving. Like, there were times where you used to be able to get, I think, a little bit of time away, and now just the pressure that these guys have to be recruiting constantly is, it's tough. I mean, that one of the people that we write about in the book is Sonny Dykes, the TCU head coach. And I thought Sonny had a kind of a really interesting perspective and a really honest perspective. And he talked about, it's like, during, like high school football season, college football season, we're playing games on Saturdays, but Friday night, myself and a bunch of our coaches are having to fly around the country just to show up on a sideline for 5 minutes just to show our faces, because if we don't do it, we know our rival's doing it, when we really should be spending time with our team in those moments. And so these guys, it's a ultra competitive world where everyone is worried about, well, if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And that creates this pressure, I think, inside of everyone that they have to constantly be going and going and going. And I think that leads to burnout. I think that's what you're seeing. I've talked to a lot of different agents, and the number one thing that I hear from them is like, guys would love to jump to the NFL so they don't have to deal with recruiting anymore. And again, within that overall umbrella is NIL and transfer portal. They're all kind of, buttoned up together. And that's just where a lot of the frustration is coming with, because it's never ending. And there's something kind of uncomfortable, I think, for some of these older coaches to have a kid come into your office and say, you don't give me $100,000, I'm leaving. And that's happening. It's happening throughout the sport. It happened to Nick Saban. And those guys just don't take super kindly to that. And I think that's why they are looking for other opportunities if they can find them.
You mentioned agents, and we're talking about big name coaches, but maybe the biggest name that's out there is Jimmy Sexton, who's an agent. How much is he behind the scenes kind of brokering what's happening with all the coaches and some of the things that we're seeing in college football?
Yeah, I like to refer to him as the Wizard of Oz, but he actually has the power. And so he likes to be in the shadows. That's where he prefers to operate. He is a mysterious guy. Once you kind of know what you're looking for, you start seeing him in important places. But, I thought it was funny when we decided to do a chapter on him, like you Google him and like the top image result that popped up when I looked him up, like it wasn't even him. It was a different guy. And so I don't think people even really know what he looks like half the time, but he's incredibly good at what he does. His number one advantage from people I've talked to who have had to negotiate against him is data. He has so many of the top clients as, top coaches as his clients. So he knows what the market is. He knows what he can demand. He knows what he can push for. And he's had a huge impact on driving up salaries throughout the sport, which has been great, for his clients and for himself. But I will say there are people that do put blame on Jimmy Sexton for where we are right now. And one of the areas that they point to, which I think there is credence to, is the salaries got so high for college football coaches that the disparity between a coach now making maybe $10 or $11 million a year, which some are making, versus a player making nothing, which is untenable for people. I think it really turned the public, tenor around players now getting paid. I mean, you get back 15 years ago, and it was very unpopular, and now it's, at least mostly accepted, or at least somewhat accepted. And I think if the salaries maybe didn't get that high, maybe it wouldn't have happened on that timeline. But I think at a certain point, it'd be like, wow, this is ridiculous that the workforce is getting nothing and the coach is making $10 million a year. And so for better or worse, Jimmy Sexton played a huge role in that aspect of things.
We're talking to John Talty, a national college football writer for CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports, and he has a new book out called The Price, What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos. And this is just kind of my own thought. This is my own perception on this, and I could be completely off base, but I think a lot of people maybe don't realize the power that boosters have now in college football. What are some of the good and bad stories that you've seen of how boosters can really change the way that a whole college team is made?
Yeah, I think they're like mini owners now in some ways. And so if you want to have the power, it's available to you. And so, one of the little anecdotes that I liked in the book is, people are I think the average person in sports has at least probably heard of Phil Knight. To have it, it's the Nike co-founder. He's an Oregon super fan. And, it was explained to me that at this stage of his life, he's in his 80s, he's a billionaire, that there are two things that he cares about. He wants to do everything he can to try to, find some cures to cancer. He's invested millions upon millions of dollars in that. And the other thing is he wants to see Oregon win a national championship before he dies. And so I talked to this one agent who was doing a deal with Oregon, and there were other schools that were trying to get the player. And it was, kind of like a back and forth negotiation, like who's going to pull the trigger first. And he said, we had this deal that we were trying to get done with Oregon, and we had to wait for Phil Knight to wake up in order to get the deal done because he was that involved in that small of a detail. And so you can have that. The flip side is, how much power is that person demanding? Like what are the strings that are attached to their donations? And so we saw, a famous one, I think is John Ruiz down in Miami, who's now, he's got some legal issues that are popping up, but someone who saw himself as, all right, I'm going to be kind of the owner of this team, and I'm going to, pay the best that money can buy. And, it didn't work for Miami those first couple of years. They didn't necessarily get the right players. And I think that, from talking to people in that program, it actually created culture problems that they were making, big payments for some of these players that, maybe were not ready for that money yet. So there's a good and bad with it. I think that, when you talk to athletic directors and administrators, a lot of them are uncomfortable about ceding that much power to a third party or someone outside of their own structure. But it's a necessity right now in college football. And if you look at the top of, the top 25 or whatever it might be, it's the schools right now that have, boosters who are passionate and are willing to put money in. If you don't have an NIL war chest to work with right now, you're just not going to be successful in this current version of college football. So it's kind of a necessary evil. And for some, it's been great. And for others, it's led to some problems.
John, my final question, and this is an honest question. I'm just curious your answer. What does the NCAA do anymore? What are they doing to police any of this stuff going on? I mean, being a organizational body to make sure that they're running this properly. I mean, what do they do right now?
It's a great question. I don't think they know the answer to that. I think that the issue right now is that the NCAA is essentially afraid of its own shadow. They're so worried about getting sued. And in fairness, that's not an unwarranted fear. They have gotten sued quite a bit, and it feels like they're on the longest legal losing streak that I can remember an organization having. They just lose every time they go to court, which is why, they're trying to be proactive about settlements and things like that. But, they've got to get their arms around it. And, whether it's the enforcement of the NIL rules, which is something that I think they're hoping they might be able to get a better shot of doing under the new, House settlement, which could get approved on Thursday potentially. Having that set of guidelines, I think will help understand, what they can and can't do. But, they're in a really tough spot. And I think the thing that continues to loom over the NCAA is, could there be a breakaway from the SEC and Big Ten down the line? Because at a certain point, like there are others within, college sports wondering, what does the NCAA really do? What is their value to us moving forward? And for a long time, it was they run all the championships, they enforce the rules, they do a lot of the stuff that nobody, frankly, really wants to do. But if they're not able to do those things anymore, you might think, well, maybe we should just do it ourselves and create our own rules and not have to worry about the NCAA anymore. So I'll leave you on this. One of the people in our book said about Charlie Baker, he's either going to be the best NCAA president of all time or he's going to be the last. And so that, to me, is where I think the NCAA is at right now. And that's the pressure that Charlie Baker faces.
John, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on your book.
Thanks so much. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was John Talty, the national college football writer for CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. As we mentioned, his book, The Price, you can find it on Amazon. I looked this up last night, Dan, so I knew what to say to people where they could find this on Amazon, or you can go into the good old Barnes & Noble. I always love going to Barnes & Noble and checking out the books. Coming up next, we have the fight. So if you want to fight me, unless Dan wants to step in. If you want to fight me... Oh, okay. I
already have the questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just... guess not.
Yeah, maybe
Anyways,
I should.
If you want to fight me, text into the Air Comfort Service text line. That is 314-399-9646, 314-399. Yo-ho! The fight is next.
We are now just 2 days away from the start of the NFL season, and that means daily fantasy. And when's the best place to play daily fantasy for me is my friends over at Underdog Fantasy. And the reason is I always have a game to play, whether it's baseball, soccer, a little bit of football, obviously getting involved. Golf comes into play every single Thursday through Sunday, which I love all the different ways to play on Underdog Fantasy. But the big thing is, of course, the NFL season is back on Thursday. And right now, you can get your week 1 entries in right now on Underdog Fantasy. And they have promos running. I put together an entry just a few minutes ago. They were giving me a promo with Travis Kelce higher than 0.5 total yards for Thursday night. I love that one, so I ran with it. So we're going to go with our promo on Travis Kelce. We're going to go Isaiah Pacheco lower than 62.5 rushing yards because it seems like they're going to give the ball to multiple backs there in Kansas City this year. And then we're going to go higher than 0.5 rushing and receiving touchdowns for Zay Flowers. If the Ravens are going to be scoring in this game, I think it's going to be through the air with Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers. So we built out an entry just like that on Underdog. You can see how easy it is. You can make your picks on Underdogs. It's straightforward, and signing up is even easier than playing. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code ROCC, and Underdog is going to give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ROCC to claim your new customer special of a free pick and that deposit offer. Must be 18 plus and present in state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern with your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncbgambling.org. This is Rocchio with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals take 2 of 3 from the Yankees in New York, but then they get shellacked by the Brewers during your holiday, 9-3 yesterday. Andre Palante, 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, and 5 walks. He also had 3 strikeouts and allowed 2 home runs in that game. Cardinals back in action tonight as they face off against Brewers in Game 2. Also over the weekend, college football Week 1, including some big wins, including number 1 Georgia 34-3 over number 14 Clemson, and then last night it was Boston College 28-13 over still ranked number 10 FSU. We think that's going to change. Also over the weekend, St. Louis City, a big 2-1 win over the LA Galaxy. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent makers and heating and air conditioning dealer.
.839 in St. Louis, the morning drive on 101 ESPN. Brooke is out of the studio. Randy's out of the studio. He's on vacation. I'm Dan McLaughlin. That is Matthew Rocchio. And our fighter today is Cliff. Cliff, good morning. How are you?
Great. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. Now, have you ever fought Brooke, Randy, Fast Lane? Nope. You've never done any of it?
Listening forever.
Oh, long-time listener, first-time caller. I've never heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. So are you confident, Cliff? I mean, when you
fought... Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Let it roll.
All right. You ready to go? Here we go.
Ready to go.
Prior to joining the Packers as head coach and putting together a run of 5 titles in his 9 years. Prior to that, he was also an NFL championship coach as an offensive coordinator of which NFL team? So prior to joining the Packers as head coach and putting together a run of 5 titles in his 9 years, prior to that, he also won an NFL championship as the offensive coordinator of which team? We're talking about Vince Lombardi. Was it the Browns, the Colts, or the Giants?
Giants. Final answer.
All right, on to question 2.
All right, number 2. Since the turn of the 20th century, how many times have the Cardinals lost 100 games in a season? Is it 0, once, or twice?
0.
Final answer, Cliff?
Final answer.
All right. Question 3. There are 3 players to be drafted number 1 overall in the NBA draft while coming straight out of high school. LeBron James, Dwight Howard, and who else? Was it
Moses Malone?
Okay.
All right. Number 4. Who is the last Missouri Tiger to be taken in the first round while playing on the offensive side of the ball? Is that Jeremy Maclin, Drew Lock, or Blaine Gabbert?
Final answer.
Did you say what was your answer there? You cut out for a second.
Jeremy Maclin.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, we'll double check our score and we will bring in Brooke Grimsley. Cliff, how you feeling?
2 or 3, maybe.
2 or 3, maybe. All right.
Yeah.
Which ones are you feeling good about?
Well, I might have jumped in early. I hope Moses was that choice.
All righty. Well, we'll see how it is. I like it when people jump in without seeing the options, but I like the confidence in you, Cliff. We'll see if it pays off. Brooke is in the studio.
Hi.
Oh, but the correct mic would be helpful. There we go.
Oh, wait, what happened?
Now you say now say hi.
Oh, now I can say hi. I thought somehow the mics got switched up.
No,
Hi,
they did.
everybody.
I turned on the wrong mic.
Who am I talking to?
Hi, say hi to Cliff.
Oh, Cliff. Hey, Cliff, how are you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you feeling after? I'm just trying to gauge how I should feel.
Did you have grapes or raisins?
Ooh, I did not have any grapes today. I had a Belvita Crunch. That is what I eat every single morning. That's what fuels me.
All right.
Sounds like danger.
Sounds like danger.
Brooke, are you ready for question 1?
Sure, Dan.
Prior to joining the Packers as head coach and putting together a run of 5 titles in his 9 years, Vince Lombardi also won an NFL championship as the offensive coordinator of which team? Now, Brooke gets options, correct?
2. Yes.
2 out of 4.
Okay. I think I have an idea here, but just give me the options just in case.
Browns, Colts, Giants. That's your final answer?
Yes, that's my final answer.
All right.
All right.
Conviction, Dan. Conviction.
Here you go.
You always say that with Randy.
Since the turn of the 20th century, how many times have the Cardinals lost 100 games in a season?
Oh. It's either like once or never is what I feel like here. So I'll go with once. Because, surely there had to have been like one time.
Is that your final answer?
Been 124 years, I figure. Yeah, that's probably not a bad guess.
Yeah, well, they're one of the few organizations that really hasn't had 100-loss seasons.
On to the NBA. There are 3 players to be drafted number 1 overall in the NBA draft while coming straight from high school. LeBron James, Dwight Howard, and who else?
Options, please.
Emeka Okafor, Kevin Garnett, or Kwame Brown?
I know some NBA fans are going to be mad at me about this. I'm not completely sure here. Garnett?
Final answer?
Yeah.
All right.
Not much conviction there, Dan.
That's
it was
all right.
Kind of sad conviction.
Garnett?
And Brooke, who is the last Missouri Tiger to be taken in the first round while playing on the offensive side of the ball?
I think first thought would be Jeremy Maclin, but he wasn't taken in the first round. I think a lot of people expected him to be. At least that's what I remember.
I'm not looking at you. I refuse to give away any. I have no poker face, and so I'm just gonna stare out the window.
But maybe I'm wrong. Like that's what I'm guessing here. Is like maybe I'm wrong here.
Look at a beautiful morning in St. Louis.
I think so offensive side. That's a very important part here.
Been a lot of defensive first rounders, but Not so much on the offensive side
And
of
this
the
is
ball.
the first time?
Who is the last. The most
Okay.
recent Missouri Tiger to be taken in the first round who's playing on the offensive side of the ball?
It could have been Gabbert, too. Because Gabbert went to Jacksonville.
You'd know that being a big Jaguars fan.
No, I do not. I just remember that I felt like he was really set up to fail in that situation in Jacksonville. I think it was Gabbert.
All right. Is that your final answer?
Yes. Don't you
All right.
guys feel like that? Like that situation that he went into? Well, I mean, he's made a great career out of being a backup quarterback, but
I'm not sure what that situation is. I mean, maybe if his
They kinda set
situation
him
was
up
in
to
fact
fail.
being a first-round pick, then maybe. But I'm not sure if that was his situation. We'll have to wait and see here, Brooke. We have a winner in today's fight. This is a close one today. Cliff's been looking for a shot in the fight for a while now. Did he get a win today, or does Brooke, standing in for Megamind, walk away with a victory? Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis, with the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
Just win, baby. They don't ask how many. They don't ask how. They ask how many, Brooke. And you got 2-1 over Cliff. I'm sorry, Cliff. You were close, but no cigar in today's fight. Let's go through the questions and the answers really quickly. Prior to joining the Packers as head coach and putting together a run of 5 titles in 9 years, Vince Lombardi also won an NFL championship as the offensive coordinator of the New York Football Giants. Since the turn of the 20th century, how many times have the Cardinals lost 100 games in a season? They've done it 4 times in franchise history, but since the turn of the 20th century, it has just been twice, and it was back-to-back years all the way back in 1907 and 1908 are the last times the Cardinals lost 100 games.
you said twice?
Twice, 1907 and 1908, 2 seasons back-to-back in the 20th century. Since the start of the 20th century, the Cardinals have lost 100 games. 3 players to be drafted number 1 overall in the NBA draft while coming straight out of high school. LeBron James and Dwight Howard also did that in back-to-back years, but the first player to ever be drafted number 1 out of high school was, in fact, Kwame Brown. And the last Missouri Tiger to be taken in the first round while playing on the offensive side of the ball, Drew Lock, was drafted in the second round. Jeremy Maclin was drafted in the first round, but he was drafted in 2009. 2011, Missouri had 2 first-round picks. First or 7th overall was Alden Smith, and then 10th overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. In a lockout year was Blaine Gabbert, who then got thrown to the absolute wolves. You were 100% correct,
because I remember that.
He got thrown to the wolves, put in one of the worst situations we've ever seen for a rookie quarterback. He wasn't very polished coming out of Mizzou. He didn't have a big senior season. He didn't have time to work with his receivers because of the lockout.
It was such a bad situation.
And then he got put in actually in the starting lineup with a very, very suspect and average Jaguars roster. So you're 100% correct. Absolutely thrown to the wolves. But you were also thrown to the wolves, but you came out on the other end with a 2-1 victory over Cliff. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining the fight and joining the show today.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Cliff. We are getting some justice for Cliff text coming in. Do you see that, Dan?
Yeah, there's the turn of the 20.
The problem is you guys don't know what you're talking about. And see, that's a problem when you show your ass. The turn of the 20th century. I can say ass on the radio.
Okay.
The turn of the 20th century was going from 1899 to 1900 because that's how centuries work. All right, now that we did that, thanks everybody.
There's crickets.
Good Lord.
Crickets. Dan, thoughts?
It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated, people. It's not that complicated. This is how centuries work. We are currently in the 21st century. So the 20th century would be the 1900s.
We both got it wrong, though, right? Because what did he say?
He said 0. You said once. And the answer again, twice.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That was the fight. Coming up next, is there some college football possible firings coming soon? We're going to talk about some coaches in the hot seat. That's next here on 101 ESPN. Welcome back to the opening drive. Excuse me. I just forgot the name of our show for a second.
Opening drive,
because Rocchio is over there just typing away angrily because it's okay. You can do that. We know that you like to do that. You're keeping people in check over there. But this long Labor Day weekend, we had a lot of college football, and it was fantastic to see. There's a lot of teams that took care of business, but there was some teams that definitely did not take care of business, like Florida State and Boston College last night. Good for Boston College, but I think that was one of the more shocking losses. As you said, your friends, Dan, they suffered because of that one.
Florida State was top 10. Not anymore. They're out of the top 25. Got to be. They're 0-2 to start this year.
Yeah, and then you had LSU with their loss to USC. Florida lost to Miami. That score 41-17. That was a big one. And I know that the commonality between all of those is that they're really good teams facing each other, not cupcake teams that they face. But are some head coaches in the hot seats all ready to start the season? Let's start with Brian Kelly. Dan, LSU was outscored 14-3 in the fourth quarter. Blake Baker's defense kind of falling through there. And they have now lost 5 straight season openers, tied for the longest streak in school history. Let's check in with head coach Brian Kelly after the loss.
And we're sitting here again. We're sitting here again talking about the same things. About not finishing when you have an opponent in a position to put them away. But what we're doing on the sideline is feeling like the game's over. And I'm so angry about it that I got to do something about it. I'm not doing a good enough job as a coach. And I got to coach them better because it's unacceptable for us not to have found a way to win this football game. It's ridiculous.
That sounds so goofy to me, Dan. Like, where was the emotion during the game? I'm sorry, but Brian Kelly, this is why I said earlier, is one of my favorite things from the weekend. Sorry, LSU fans out there. I don't know how many of you are out there in St. Louis or the St. Louis area or listening wherever you can, but I'm going to be honest here. Brian Kelly just kind of seems like a goofy coach to me. The accent comes and goes. There's a lot of stuff there, and I think for Mizzou fan purposes, there's a lot of different reasons to not like him because he's taken some Mizzou guys or local area guys and took Baker, which, I mean, that doesn't look like that's working out for him so far. After, by the way, Brian Kelly had fired Baker before, and then going back into that situation just never made any sense to me.
And prior to him punching the table after the game, they had played certainly well enough to win Sunday night against USC. They had penalties, though. They had red zone woes that cost them. There's multiple times they're in the red zone, did not wind up getting points. So there's going to be a rankings drop, and they're now 0-1. And I wonder with the rankings right now, what happens to Mizzou? You know, how high can Mizzou jump? Do they jump Michigan? That's a question for some of the voters, and there's varied beliefs in terms of where the reigning champs stand against other top teams. And Missouri was already in the top 10 on 30 of the 62 ballots in the preseason voting for the AP, so a bump into Florida State's old spot seems like the bare minimum right now for a movement, you know, for Mizzou after a 51-0 win over Murray State. So, yeah, Brian Kelly's got issues, and Mizzou is going to probably move up in the polls thanks to some of the losses over the weekend.
And you also had Florida with a 24-point loss to Miami, and Billy Napier decided to take a shot at fans and, well, I guess I should say a very specific group of fans. Here's what he had to say in his Monday press conference.
We got to go to work on the football part, you know, and I think we got to become a more consistent team, and we have to execute better. And if we can focus on those things and not necessarily what some guy in his basement saying in, you know, rural Central Florida on social media, then we got a chance to get better, right? So.
Good luck going after fans and going after the fans that don't own a basement in Florida, because no one does.
Because that's not a thing in Florida. It's not for, I mean, kind of obvious reasons, because they do have, you know, weather issues when it comes to hurricanes and stuff that might result in flooding. So having a basement wouldn't exactly help you in that, situation whatsoever. So I just think it's really shocking, and I never will understand the tactic of going after fans. Dan, you mentioned it earlier. Maybe, you know, we definitely saw the reaction from Greg Amsinger when he kind of put a lot of things on the fans here recently of not showing up to games. But I want to know if there's ever been an occasion where somebody called out the fans and it worked out in their favor.
No, I can't. Not that I know of. Do you?
No, there's not a single coach or a single instance that I can think of.
Gary Templeton got moved from St. Louis to San Diego. That seems like a pretty good positive.
That worked. That one worked out for the Cardinals.
St. Louis all the way to San Diego. I mean, you go from St. Louis weather to San Diego. No, I'm saying it worked out pretty well for Gary.
Yeah, I think it worked out pretty well here too. The old Wizard wound up showing up in St. Louis. That was pretty good. So you got Georgia will be number 1, Ohio State 2, Texas will be 3. I think Oregon 4, Notre Dame will move up to 5 maybe. Alabama, they had a big win, and I mean big in terms of 63-0. Ole Miss would be top 10. Penn State
Miami moves up.
Yeah, Michigan, and then I think Missouri and Miami will be the interesting ones to see exactly how far they jump. Miami, there are a lot of voters that had them as a top 10 team anyway, just because of the personnel. So, yeah, I think the voters would move them up as well.
With Florida, and this is why I said earlier, I think the Billy Napier will be the first to go because you can't have that there with Florida. And they've had, during his tenure, 3 years there, it's just consistently mediocre teams. And now, you mentioned it, with Miami's quarterback Cam Ward, he is really, really talented. I mean, he diced up Florida's secondary for 385 yards and a couple touchdowns he had? I think 3 touchdowns that he had in the game. And defensively, Florida didn't look better than the team that they were last year, where they allowed 38 points per game in their 5-game skid last year. Miami poured on a 529, total yards of offense. That looks bad for Florida.
Yeah, this is the SEC, man. And so if this is the SEC and you're in Florida and you're in the swamp and you're expected to win and you're not winning and win, you have to, I mean, in-state games where you have the fans are just, they're going to come out, they're going to support you. They did. The place was packed. I watched the game and they were thoroughly beat at home. And he was already in the hot seat coming back this year. And their schedule is a gauntlet. Their schedule is really tough. So because of the 12-team playoff, maybe if you're the administration of Florida, you say, all right, we give them a shot. But then after loss 2 or 3, then adios. And that's maybe the way it goes.
Yeah, from the 3 and 4, Drink called out fans and got a sellout. Now, maybe I was just interpreting this just a little bit differently, but it kind of felt like more of like a rah-rah motivation speech that Drinkwitz was doing with the fans. Did you see it differently?
No, I mean, I understand where he's coming from. I do. And he's got a top 10 program, and I think he's trying to put a little pressure on the fan base to come out. I just don't think any time that you go after a fan base, you're going to win.
No.
It's just that simple.
But that's the issue, too, is that it could be interpreted in many different ways. And so that's the other portion of it.
But, I mean, again, I understand where he's trying to get people to come out. And, you know, he's built this program, and to an extent, he's right. If you're top 15, top 10, you're in the SEC, you should be packed every single night. It doesn't matter who you're playing. But when you come after fans, generally speaking, it just doesn't work.
And they did get over 40,000. Was it for the game against Murray State?
Oh, it was more than that. What was it, Matthew? It was, what's it hold now, Farrell?
Oh, God, it's 62.
Is it 62?
Yeah.
Right around 62,000.
Wow.
Yeah. It was crowded. It was packed, and they had a sellout crowd, which they should.
You can tell that. We'll wait for him to get the numbers.
The renovations could mean 51 new suites and take capacity from 60. So this is the another new one. So they're going to take it up to about 6,500 or 65,000. It says 62,621. So yeah.
Yep. They had a sellout.
Wow. Yeah, you could definitely tell. We have some breaking news that we'll address coming up here shortly, but Torey Krug will undergo a season-ending surgery on his left ankle. We'll discuss that coming up next here on the Rush Hour Reset.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Brooke Grimsley here for your Redbird report. After winning the series against the Yankees this past weekend, the Cardinals couldn't keep the fire burning as they fell to the Brewers on Labor Day in the series opener. Milwaukee hit 3 home runs, including a grand slam from rookie Jackson Chourio to lead them to a 9-3 win. Pedro Pajes hit a pair of solo home runs for the Cardinals. Andre Palante gave up 5 runs, 5 hits, and a season-high of 5 walks in 5 innings. Steven Matz, who was activated from the injured list on Sunday, will start tonight for the Cardinals. First pitch is at 6:40.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen. stories of the day on the opening drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocc here. Randy Carricker with the week off, and we just talked about this right before going to the break, but some breaking news coming out from the Blues. They have announced that Torey Krug will undergo surgery on his ankle and will miss the remainder of the season. Dan, this is all news that we were expecting. We were just waiting for that final result that he would need surgery, and now he's out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it seemed like a foregone conclusion, and it seemed clear when they signed Ryan Suter that they weren't planning on him being back this season. I guess the question would be, would Krug even be back in St. Louis at any time after this year?
Yeah.
He'll have 2 more years left on his contract after this year, but it seems that they're headed in a new direction. And I know some will say that when they signed Broberg that it was also an indication of what was going to happen. But Broberg is a part of their future, and I think they would have done that regardless of Krug's status. So now it just becomes official. He's done for the year and move forward.
I think a lot of the moves made a lot of sense that we were heading towards this direction. It's hard because with Torey Krug, personally, a very likable player. He's super kind, great with media members, all the different kind of stuff. And it just hasn't worked out here in St. Louis. I think that's the best way to phrase it, is that he's had a lot of injuries. I think the expectations were a little bit higher for him coming in, and it just hasn't panned out in the way that we expected.
Yeah, and so the question would be what happens after this year. So he'll have the surgery, he'll be able to rehab, he'll have the 2 more years on that deal, and that's a question they're going to have to answer moving forward.
Yeah, also makes sense about what we'll see defensively for this team moving forward, and those missing parts and pieces, and how the roster would shake out. The Cardinals will be back in action against the Brewers today. It will be Steven Matz back on the mound. His first time pitching since April 30th after dealing with back issues. And no, it was more than just a week back. This has been a long ongoing issue for Steven Matz, and he will be on the mound today. Do you think that it will be a shorter start for Steven Matz?
Well, he's stretched out. So if he's pitching well, why take him out?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's stretched out. He's had plenty of time, obviously, in the minor leagues. And I think performance will dictate just how long he stays. What's interesting to me is that the magic number now for the Brewers is already down to 15. Cardinals are 12 back in the Central, 5.5 back in the wild card, minus 58 run differential as they open up play here in September. Brewers are really good, though, man. This team has earned every spot of where they're at because they have the best ERA in baseball since June 1st. They have 3 players with 20 or more home runs: Adames, Hoskins, Contreras. Willy Adames, 5th straight game with a home run yesterday. He now has 29 on the year. His year's kind of flown under the radar to me for a lot of the fanfare that Ohtani and some of the others get, and the big names in Philly, and they should. This guy's had a great year, 29 home runs. He's driven in 99. And Jackson Chourio, he's 20 years old, won't be 21 until March. He'll be the 3rd youngest 2020 player when he gets there. Mike Trout, Veda Penson were the other 2 to be 2020 players this young. That's how good he is. He's a heck of a player, man. Already 18 home runs, 67 driven in, and a key part to what they're doing this year.
And I know that mathematically there's always a chance, right, with the Cardinals. There's always a chance that something could happen. They go on an amazing stretch. We have seen it before, especially in the month of September. But at what point do you think the organization starts turning the page and looking towards next year?
Well, I think they kind of have, when they said
with
that
the youth movement.
Yeah, I mean, when they said Jordan Walker's going to play every day, regardless of performance for the most part, I think that's their way of saying, we're still keeping an eye on this year. Yes, we're mathematically alive. We owe it to ourselves to play this thing out, but we also need to know more about Jordan Walker. So I think to an extent you can play both sides of the fence, and I think that's what they're doing right now.
And they got rid of Tommy Pham. How will you remember the short Tommy Pham return era here in St. Louis?
Well, I give him credit. I mean, he's got, 9 different teams here in the last 3 or 4 years.
With the Royals, by the way.
Yeah, he's with the Royals, and what it tells me is that he's probably a pretty good teammate and still has something to offer for all these teams that are in contention, by the way, to make a move to bring him in. So I think when you look at his time in St. Louis, did they turn the page on him? Maybe more looking towards the future, to your point, yes. But can he still play and help somebody in a postseason spot? Yeah, I think the answer is yes, and that's why he goes to Kansas City.
I'll never forget the Pham Slam.
It was a good one.
It was a good one.
Yep.
That was we brought back a little bit of hope back into the
We
organization.
really thought it was going to be this wild, like, 2-month run of him just like
so ready,
mashing the hell out of lefties and just making these crazy plays in the outfield. Just like, oh man, it's going to feel like 2019 again.
I thought the devil magic was back.
From their perspective, though, do you want to watch Tommy Pham or do you want to watch Jordan Walker?
I want to see Jordan Walker.
I do too.
Well, Dan, not to harp on a previous argument, but I would also rather see Michael McGreevy pitch than Steven Matz.
It's fair enough.
I feel like the rationale's similar. I know it's different because McGreevy's level of prospect is not Jordan Walker, but I feel like there's the premise. There's an incongruency between the two situations. Like, I feel like both should be handled the same way, and one's being handled one way and one's being handled the other way.
Well, I think you still have time, and I think that you may see that before it's all said and done. I do.
Your lips to God's ears.
The other part of this, though, too, is that you're doing a player a favor.
Yes.
And that's one of the things you're doing with Tommy Pham is saying, we're probably not going to postseason play. We're going to put you in a spot to have another bite at the apple and see what you can do. And I think that was part of the equation as to why they did this as well. If the Cardinals were, within 6 of the Central or 5 or 6 and you're head-to-head with Milwaukee and you're 1 or 2 out in the wild card, I think Tommy Pham is still here. But they're not.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
That's Dan, Rocc, and I'm Brooke. Coming up next, we'll head to the celebrity line to talk to John Denton of MLB.com. He has an article out right now where he talked to Paul Goldschmidt about his future and maybe even playing next year. That's something we'll discuss with him coming up here on the opening drive. Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Roccio here, and we head to the celebrity line to talk to John Denton of MLB.com. John, how are you doing this morning?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for having me, Brooke.
Oh, yeah. How was your Labor Day weekend?
I labored on Labor Day.
Yeah, you were pretty busy.
Yeah, I had an early flight from New York, very little sleep, but got to Milwaukee in time. But I tell you what, it's a beautiful, beautiful week here in Milwaukee. 66 degrees yesterday. The roof was open, so couldn't have been much nicer here in Milwaukee.
That sounds like pickleball weather, John.
It does. I haven't played, but I'm itching to.
Well, I want to start with, since it was a long weekend, I want to start with the series win against the Yankees. It seemed like the Cardinals really unlocking some power there this past weekend, especially Jordan Walker with that 5-hit day. I know it's a very small sample size, of course, but did this weekend kind of showcase the immense potential that he has?
Yeah, definitely. Brooke, one takeaway that I had from that was Jordan said that, days like that remind him of the joy he has when he plays baseball. And he said there's a lot of times it's hard to find joy in baseball because it's a hard game and there's so much failure. If you get hits 3 times out of 10 at bats, you're probably a Hall of Famer. So it reminded him of why he loves the game. It allowed him to smile again. His teammates celebrated him, really well. It was nice to see him have confidence, have a smile. I think it can do a ton for him because it shows him, when he sticks to his principles, when he doesn't fly off the ball, when he lays off of that ball in the outside corner, it can really help him have success.
What adjustments is he making in that regard, John? I've always felt like, and great to hear your voice, I've always felt like if he's going to stick in the big leagues, he's going to have to make the adjustment of the sweeper, the slider, anything middle, outer half, and either lay off that pitch or take it to right. So what adjustments has he made in talking with people or maybe even talking to him that he's made in trying to make that adjustment?
Yeah, Danny, there was one stretch the other night where I think he saw 9 pitches and 8 of them were sweepers. And, it's a copycat league. Once they see Marcus Stroman have success with it, they're going to do it over and over. He knows he has to lay off that pitch off the outside of the plate. You can't swing at that. They're trying to get you to swing at that pitch. And, on Sunday, he did swing at a ball off the plate, but he stayed in it with his front shoulder. He drove it the other way. If he's going to fly open with that front shoulder and try to be dead pull, they're going to pepper him with outside corner pitches. They're going to throw him balls off the plate because even if you hit that, you're going to roll it over and hit a ground ball to shortstop or, hit a ground ball to third base. So Jordan even says he knows what they're trying to do. It's just that pitch comes in, it looks like it's going to be a strike, and then it breaks off the plate. It also doesn't help Jordan that, the other day he gets the sweeper that was both low and off the plate. They called strike 3 on it. So, it's a learning curve for him. He just has to lay off of that pitch that's off the plate.
John, speaking of young outfielders, the Cardinals are changing up how they're working with Victor Scott II. With Michael Ciani back, he will be the center fielder. And, of course, VS2 will get some playing time, but it seems like they're working on him with some other things. What are you hearing about what his role will be like down the stretch?
Yeah, I know Cardinal fans aren't very happy about it. Victor made a great catch the other day. He's made some really good catches since he's took over for Ciani, but he needs to work on his jump. He needs to work on his route. He's a guy he has such amazing closing speed that he can make these catches, but they feel like there's so much more potential there that if he can work with Willie McGee, if he can work with Pop on the bases, Pop Warner on the bases, he can be even better. He needs to play. If this team totally falls out of it, gets eliminated, he needs to be in the lineup. But for now, Michael Ciani's a better defender. I think Victor has way more potential at the plate. He's really been a different hitter since he came back to the major leagues. The kid needs to play, so I wonder how long they can keep him up here without him playing, because he needs to be in the lineup. He needs to be playing every day. They may shift gears and send him to Memphis and think that, he needs to play more. But I definitely think he needs to be in the lineup 4 days a week, and I don't know if that's possible with Michael Ciani here.
What happens with Steven Matz after tonight? Does he stay in the rotation? Do they make it a 6-man rotation? Does he go to the bullpen? What's the mindset of the organization in terms of Steven Matz after tonight, and then why he gets the start tonight too?
Yeah, Danny, it's basically how he pitches tonight. If tonight doesn't go well, I don't see him getting another start. If it goes well, maybe he does. But, right now they have 6 starters. When Lance Lynn comes back, could be 7 starters. So something has to give there. You can't have that many starters. And I'm not even sure a 6-man rotation helps them right now. Steven Matz may be better out of the bullpen. As strange as it sounds, short bursts, 3 batters, that sort of thing. He showed some potential last season as a high leverage reliever. It's just, Steven has to prove that he can pitch at this level. He was not very good the first 6 starts. He had a good first start in L.A., but then after that, kind of downhill. And he's been dealing with this back thing for 4 months. If today goes well, I think maybe he gets another start. If tonight goes poorly, I think he will probably go to the bullpen.
We're talking to John Denton of MLB.com, and you have an article out right now on MLB.com where you chatted with Paul Goldschmidt, who is turning 37 soon, about his thoughts about playing next year. What did Goldie reveal about his outlook on next season?
Yeah, I had a long conversation with Goldie, and, I asked him point blank. I was like, do you want to play next year? And he said, yes, he does. Definitely wants to play next year. He hasn't thought about retirement. I asked him, I said, do you want to play in St. Louis next year? Do you want to be a Cardinal? Do you want to finish out your career as a Cardinal? That he tap danced a little bit, didn't really want to answer. Doesn't know what the future is going to hold. He's going to be a free agent. He doesn't know if the Cardinals are going to offer him a deal, if they're going to offer him a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal. I think it holds great value. I think he would like to stay here in St. Louis. But who knows? I mean, they have younger, cheaper options available at second base and at first base. Goldie actually came back to me yesterday, and there are stats that say he can get it back. He thinks that this is a blip. He thinks that yes, he's turning 37 soon, but there are indications that he can get it back and get back closer to the player he used to be. His hard hit rate is actually better now than it was in 22 when he won the MVP. His exit velocity, average exit velocity off the bat, is higher now than it was in 2022 when he won the MVP. So he thinks with some adjustments, with some fixes this offseason, that he can get closer to the player he used to be.
I was watching Jackson Churio yesterday, and he's such an amazing talent. He's only 20 years old, and I started thinking about Mason Wynn, and I know that this is getting kind of putting the cart before the horse here, but thinking about extensions. Do you think that they look at a Mason Wynn as a guy that they engage this offseason and say, you know what, you want to be the face of the franchise? Let's do it. Let's team up here and let's get you a long-term deal and let's make you the face of this team.
Yeah, Danny, I think it would be so smart. I mean, this kid, the way this kid has handled his rookie year, the way he's improved at the plate, the way he's been so steady at shortstop, it's really impressive. I think it says a lot about, his baseball IQ. You know better than anybody. Like, to see somebody hit the way he's hit with 2 strikes, he looks like he's 35 years old up there, the way he hits with 2 strikes. He knows how to shorten his swing up. He knows how to go with pitches. It's been really impressive. To see him struggle last year in his cameo and then come back this year as a totally different player, it just says so much about how smart this kid is, how much he wants to win, how much he wants to do things the right way. I think it would be a smart move to sign him up now, because every day you wait, it's just going to get more and more expensive. And, that's the trend around the league. The Cardinals have done this before, but if you identify a player who you think can be the face of your franchise, lock them up sooner, not later, because it's just going to cost you more money down the line.
Do you see a scenario, John, in the next 3 weeks that McGreevy or Graceffo or maybe another young kid that we're not talking about right now, or I'm not going to ask about, that they get a call up and maybe see some playing time?
I think those guys have definitely earned it. And, the way they pitched when they came up, McGreevy had 1 start, pitched really well. Graceffo had a couple of shots here, pitched pretty well. But to do that, you're going to have to tell some veteran to sit down. Like we talked about earlier, they have 6 starters now. If Lance Lynn comes back and pitches again, that'll be 7. You're basically going to have to sit down some veterans. So, yes, I think they deserve a shot. I just don't know that they're going to tell veterans to pull the plug right now, because, everybody's pitching with their career on the line and trying to look, for a deal next season. So if they do, it will be some hard decisions to make, no doubt.
John, thank you so much for joining us. And I know that you had till Labor Day, but I feel like the Brewers should at least let you play on the pickleball court inside the stadium.
Exactly. Yeah, they have a pickleball court in the stadium. That was luring me yesterday. I had to walk by and take a look at it. So, but I'm hoping to get back on the courts when we get back to St. Louis. So, Brooke and I are still steaming about losing a 20-18 match the other day. It's still sitting with me.
Oh, John, I knew that you were going to bring that up. If you guys could have seen this, somebody should have recorded it because it was insane. I thought the game was never ending. Dan, it was a battle to the last second, and we blew it. We were playing. Who was the guy who was the Padres reporter? John, I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
AJ Cassavell, who covers the Padres for MLB.com, and then Corey Miller, who works in St. Louis on TV. We
Over
had
at Channel 5.
We had the winning point on our racket like 4 or 5 times and couldn't close them out. So it's still burning me up. I know that.
Now, wait a minute. They have a pickleball court in the stadium?
Yep.
Yeah, in the stadium. It's like the upper deck level, just kind of an area. I think it's an event they held one time, a pickleball event that they held one night. So kind of cool.
I wonder if anybody's playing during the game. Did you go check that out? You're supposed to have all the answers here.
Yeah, exactly. If I was over there, I would be distracted. I would not be watching the game, that's for sure.
My question for John is if you were the Brewers, if you were writing for the Brewers, how often would you pitch the idea of doing a one-on-one interview with a guy as you played pickleball? Would that just be like every week your idea?
I like it. Hey, some of the Cardinals, Goldie has talked about playing pickleball. Alec Burleson, part of the way that he worked on getting in shape last year was playing pickleball all season. I'm telling you guys, it's the fastest growing sport in the country.
It sure is.
John, I'm trying to get them out there, but I think they're intimidated by the stories that I tell of you and I on the court.
Exactly. Team Tennessee. We rule out there.
There we go. That was John Denton of MLB.com. The Cardinals facing the Brewers today. First pitch is at 6:40 with Steve and Matz on the mound. Coming up next, we'll talk to voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, and we'll chat with him about the news coming out that Torey Krug will undergo season-ending surgery on his left ankle. We'll talk to him about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, when do we notice that our air conditioner or the heater at the house isn't doing its job? It's when you need it the most, right? Well, that's why you call Classic Air Care and you make sure that that unit is serviced and ready to go for when you need it, like as we wind down the hot summer heat in St. Louis. But I'm going to make it's just sometimes it's just about making your life easy. All right. So here's how they make your life easy. Classic Air Care has service plans. So if you become one of their members, you order up the service plan, they come to you, you set your appointments, it's done, it's taken care of. You don't have to worry about it, think about it down the road. They'll take care of things. But even better, something simple. How about air filters? Right. How many times have you had to get out to the hardware store, go for an air filter, try and remember the size? Stop doing it. If you go to ClassicAirCare.com, on the upper right corner, you'll see a button that says air filters. You can buy them right there. They'll ship them to your house. They'll ship them monthly. You don't have to worry about it again. So when you get it, you know it's time to change the air filter, and then the air in your house is cleaner because of it. It's full service. It's easy. They make it easy on you, and they're spectacular with their customer service, a 4.8 customer service rating. Check out all the reviews. It's Classic Air Care. Let them make your life easy as well, ClassicAirCare.com.
This is Rocc with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals back in action, facing off against the Brewers tonight. They fell last night 9-3 in the first game of the season. First game of the series, I should say. Andre Palante, 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts, and 2 home runs in that game. A little bit of hockey breaking news throughout the show today, as the Blues have announced Torey Krug will undergo season-ending surgery on his left ankle. And just a few minutes ago, the Edmonton Oilers announcing an 8-year extension for Leon Draisaitl at $14 million per year, the highest in NHL history. All that and more coming up with Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, here on the opening drive. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Brought to you by Sumner One.
Brooke, Dan, and Rocc here, and we head to the celebrity line to check in with the radio voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Chris, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
Brooke, I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. We do have some breaking news, as Rocc mentioned, with the Blues announcing that Torey Krug will undergo surgery on his left ankle and he will miss the rest of the season. Now, of course, this was news that a lot of us were expecting, but now we have that final confirmation going into the season. And also, you could look at the moves that were being made here recently that were also really telling.
Yeah, you kind of knew. To me, the eyebrow really was raised when the Blues signed Ryan Suter to a one-year deal, because essentially, had Torey Krug been healthy and everybody else been healthy, it's kind of going against what the Blues are doing on the forward side, and you're really kind of blocking out some of the young defensemen. So you had to wonder what was going on, and it was right after that the announcement about Torey Krug's ankle came out, and then they were trying to do it without surgery. They realized that it just isn't going to be the way to go, and so he'll be out for the year. And you know what? Good on Torey Krug for being open and straight with the team, about how he was feeling. The team got ahead of it, and they were able to do so at a time that actually allowed him to dress it before the actual doomsday scenario was actually real. And now it's real, and frankly, they're better off because they were able to plan for it. And I'll tell you what, it's disappointing. Listen, there may be some fans out there that be like, okay, well, they weren't all that happy with Torey Krug's performance over the last couple of years. He played 77 games last year and played a lot of those injured. I'll tell you something. This guy's an absolute competitor. And you knew when he was on the ice he was going to give you everything he had. He's a terrific teammate in the locker room. So, this isn't just a brush it aside one. This is quite a shame for both him and the team, I think.
And Kerbs, now that you have the official news in your position, you're getting itchy. You're getting ready for camp. You're starting to think about the season. So have you started doing some lineup combinations here, some defensive pairing combinations? I mean, come on. I know you're sitting in your basement writing these things down. It's just what you do. So what do you got? Give me some pairings that you're going to throw out there.
Yeah, and I got a basement that I really like, too, so I don't mind hanging out in it. You know what? The defense pairings for me are really what's going to be a fascinating one, just because, one, the injury to Torey Krug. Where does Broberg fit in? Does he pick up kind of where he left off in the Stanley Cup final, and can he be on a good pairing with Colton Parayko, and you have a 6'6" and a 6'4", the defensemen, both that can skate terrifically. How does that pan out? The fascinating part is still healthy. If they're healthy, it's going to be a battle for a guy like Tyler Tucker or Scott Perunovich, I think, to make the lineup. I think Matt Kessel played his way ahead of those two and earned the spot, and we'll see how it plays out. Whether he ends up on a pairing with Suter in your third pair. Now, injuries are going to happen in training camp, as you know, Dan. So, this stuff might sort itself out, but the depth that they have is going to make for some great competition. The only thing the thing that makes me most curious as we get into camp, we've got the prospect camp coming up here in just 2 weeks, and we're actually broadcasting the Friday and the Sunday game on 101, Blues prospects against Chicago and Minnesota. But does Dvorsky make the team? If Dalibor Dvorsky makes the team, it really shuffles what the Blues do in their top 9, in my opinion. And at some point in time, again, assuming health, that means some veteran players or some signees end up on waivers because there's just not enough room for everybody.
We are talking to voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And Kerbs, the other breaking news just coming out moments ago, the Oilers have signed Leon Draisaitl to an 8-year contract extension beginning in 2025-26 with an AAV of $14 million. That is a lot of money. My first reaction is, what is McDavid going to get?
Well, okay, McDavid's going to end up getting more, but right now you're talking about two guys that are in the range. What's McDavid, around 11 or 12 right now?
12.
Or something like that. Like he's at 12. So you're talking $28 million for two players. Now, the salary cap's going to continue to go up. So the Oilers are benefiting, I think, from the fact that it wasn't 3 years ago in the flat cap, because had it been the flat cap, I don't know how Edmonton does it. We have not seen a team win a Stanley Cup that top heavy with salaries. And I just don't know if you can do it. When you've got essentially 28 to 30 million currently tied up in two players, which is a massive chunk of your salary cap, are you going to have enough to buy the right depth that you need? So, and especially considering the fact that, of course, they just lost Broberg. Right, Holloway's now with the Blues, too. This one's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And these two players are absolutely worth it. I mean, and my goodness, thank goodness for Edmonton and Edmonton fans that they get to see these guys. I mean, just to watch those two guys every single night is spectacular. I just don't know, in the salary cap era, the way you have to build the depth around a team, how you pull that off. And we'll have to see if that works. But Toronto has struggled with it, over the years. And we haven't seen them be able to get over the top. So I'm curious how that one plays out, but I don't know that Edmonton had a choice. You couldn't let Draisaitl walk. So Edmonton's going to have to figure it out and maybe be the first.
Kerbs, going back to the Blues, and you mentioned Dvorsky, but is there another name that's out there that could, throw his name into the mix and surprise some people, the casual hockey fan? All of a sudden you go, oh, this guy's got a chance to make this team, which then changes the look of this team by their presence, whatever the case may be, changes lines, whatever the case may be with this. But is there another player that maybe we're overlooking that we should do a little digging on before this training camp gets going?
Well, I don't know that. Well, there's two in my book. I guess maybe three, but I don't know where Zach Dean. Zach Dean doesn't look to me like he pushes like a top six. But I wouldn't say that it's overlooking, Dan, but in the hype of the young guys and then the moves and things like that, Zach Bolduc had a really strong finish to the year and got very comfortable. He got a real good education in the National Hockey League. And the Blues are playing meaningful games with him in the top six, and I think that's another important aspect down the stretch. So, you know, the other wild card to the top six for the St. Louis Blues is, can Zach Bolduc really make a big step and impact this roster? There's a chance he could get sent back down to Springfield if he doesn't have a strong camp. But they like what he did, and he came up. So he's one. The other one that's a little bit off the radar that I'm excited to see, I don't hear his name mentioned very much, but I liked what he did in the World Juniors last year. We'll see what develops with him in terms of timing and all that stuff. But Kaskamaki, the Finnish forward,
Thank you. That's where I'm going. That's where I was going.
Yeah, he's the one that, like, he had a really good World Junior.
Yep.
Right? He had a really strong rest of the way. And that's the kind of one that if he comes in, and even more so maybe than a Dvorsky, if they come in and open your eyes, what you're hoping for the St. Louis Blues is somebody like that comes in and goes, holy smokes, maybe we didn't have him high on the radar yet, but he's on the radar. He's there now. That's all of a sudden when you start to go, boy, things are changing. And I thought Ben Fred wrote a terrific column over the weekend after talking to Doug Armstrong, and I think he's right. I don't know that the pundits, myself, if I call myself one included, really fully know what to expect from this team right now, because I'm not sure how Camp's going to go with the makeup. Do you come up slightly more veteran nature? Who gets what ice time? What guys go back down? But if a Bolduc, or somebody like that changes the tune, some veteran guys will be out of jobs.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kerbs.
Yeah, we'll have some fun. Hey, we got don't forget that prospect camp and it's open to the public, so fans can come out and watch the Blues play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then on Saturday, the Chicago prospects are playing Minnesota, all at Centene, the weekend of the 14th. So we'll see everybody out there.
All right. Thank you so much, Kerbs. That was Voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. As he mentioned, that Blues prospect camp is coming up in 2 weeks. And also, the first preseason game for the Blues is September 21st against the Stars. Now, Randy Carricker is out today, but Dan, he is a booked and busy man. And you can see him, actually. You can join Randy Carricker Monday, September 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. over at Fenton Bar and Grill. We all know that Randy loves hanging out over at Fenton Bar and Grill. Come see the best servers and bartenders in the area, including the feisty redhead Kelly, who I want to meet one day, so I need to go over there. And you can enjoy their outdoor deck, cold drinks, and chow down on the best original trash wings in St. Louis. Plus, get signed up for some 101 ESPN giveaways. That's Randy Carricker at Fenton Bar and Grill this Monday. Learn more at 101ESPN.com. Coming up next, we have Rocc and Roll. Hey everyone, it's Brooke here for Universal Windows Direct. Football season is here, and you know what that means. Fall is just around the corner, and with cooler temperatures on the way, it's time to make sure that your home is ready. If you've been dealing with drafty windows all summer, struggling on those crazy hot days, your AC working overtime, now is the perfect time to upgrade with Universal Windows Direct before the cold weather starts to kick in. Their windows feature super spacer technology, which makes the windows perform better, last longer, and helps keep your home more comfortable no matter the season. Plus, Universal Windows backs it all up with a true lifetime warranty as long as you own the home and a 20-year warranty to the next homeowner. So your windows from Universal perform better and they last longer. Schedule your free in-home estimate today, and for every 2 windows you buy, get the next 2 for free, plus 0% financing for 60 months. That's 5 years. Restrictions apply. Mention my name and you can get an additional $250 off your next project. So go to uwd.com. That's uwd.com. And like me, you'll be saying, I love my windows.
I want to rock. And roll.
Let's rock. Let's rock today.
Brooke, Dan, and Rocco here, and get signed up to play in this year's Fast Lane Pick'em Challenge over at 101 ESPN. Make your football picks each week and see if you can defeat the Fast Lane. And the dudes from the Rizzuto Show, the Fast Lane and the Riz Show, are throwing down all football season long, in the Pick'em Challenge. Get signed up before Thursday's season opener to play in the Pick'em Challenge over at 101ESPN.com. Also, this Thursday, you have a chance to hang out with the Carrie Davis of the Fast Lane and with Scott Rizzuto from the Rizzuto Show. You can join Scott Rizzuto from the Rizzuto Show and Carrie Davis this Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30 at Hot Shots in St. Charles. Come watch the NFL season kickoff Thursday night and get signed up for some 101 ESPN and point giveaways and enjoy a cold Bud Light. That's this Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30 with the Carrie Davis and Scott Rizzuto from the Riz Show over at Hot Shots in St. Charles, brought to you by Bud Light.
And that's my cue to tell you we're giving away tickets. 101 has your shot to score a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday's Budweiser Bash, Cardinals and the Reds. Cardinals and the Reds, Budweiser Bash, and it's the final Bud Bash game of the season. Features a limited edition Chris Carpenter bobblehead giveaway. Text in to win those free Budweiser Bash tickets now, after we hear this question from Rocc.
Yes, texter number 29 who answers this Chris Carpenter trivia question correctly.
29 for his jersey number.
Of course.
Okay.
Will win these tickets, and it's simple. In 2011, Chris Carpenter finished in second in the Cy Young, just a hair away from getting his second career Cy Young award with the Cardinals. So in the 2011 Cy Young vote, excuse me, not 2011, sorry, 2009 Cy Young voting, he finished second, trying to get his second Cy Young award. Who did he finish second behind in the 2009 NL Cy Young voting?
All right, text in to win those free Budweiser Bash tickets now. Have the answer, 314-399-9646. Thanks to Budweiser for hooking us up with Budweiser Bash tickets to giveaways all season long. Go ahead and do the yo-ho.
314-399 yo-ho. And some quick janitorial tending to things on the show. We had a little issue with the fight question. Some people, there was a kerfuffle. Yeah, the people had a problem with how I read the question because they were like, well, I was mad because they were like, well, you said the turn of the century, which means that was 2000, not 1900. When I said it was the turn of the 20th century, then we got many texters who said, no, you didn't say the turn of the 20th century. You're wrong. And to them, all I have to say is, number 2, since the turn of the 20th century, how many times have the Cardinals lost 100 games in a season?
Since the
no, however, just be wrong. Just stand there in your wrongness and be wrong and get used to it.
That's all I got to say.
That's your rock and roll?
You said play the tape.
No, however, just be wrong. Just stand there in your wrongness and be wrong and get used to it.
We need to get you and Randy a separate machine.
That's all I got. That's all I got for everybody. All right, there it is. You heard it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, clear as day.
Well, at least the texters didn't get to you.
When they're,
I think they did.
Yeah, they get to me. Yeah, when they say things that are so objectively, like, provably false, I can't help but be like, no, what are we doing here? Why are you making me go out here and pull audio and show you that no, you're not correct? And people were mad at me because I got mad that we had some text where they were like, no, you're wrong about the turn of the century. I know what I wrote. I know what I said. I wrote it. I said it. I know better than you about what I said and what I wrote, so I'm pretty confident in what I said and what I wrote. So when people call me essentially a liar, I don't take too kindly to it, and I like to prove them falsely.
I like rock and roll.
If you're going to call me a liar, I'm going to show you that you're wrong, or another word for it, a liar.
Let me ask you this. How long did it take you to dig up that audio?
Not very long, because if it would have taken me longer, I probably wouldn't have done it.
That's the question.
Because my pettiness goes so far, but it's balanced with my laziness to actually do the petty work.
So basically, we had a lot of texters texting in at you, Rocc. You couldn't answer them all individually, so this was your way to do it publicly and just let it rip.
Yeah, pretty much. I answered a couple of them personally, and then I was like, and also I'm going to show you the audio to prove you wrong. Because again, they were like, no, you said it 20th one time, but then the other times you didn't say 20th. So that's why I pulled all 3 to show them that they are incorrect.
It's glad
for the first time ever, and you know what? It was such a great run for the Texers. This is the first time they've really done something and gotten proven wrong so easily. So it was a good run for them, and so it had to end at some time.
I'm glad to see that they don't get under your skin at all.
Dan, you didn't see all the replies on the text line on YouTube.
Because to get under my skin, that I righteous anger, Danny Mac, righteous anger. If you tell me I'm wrong when I'm not, I'm gonna do what I have to do to prove you wrong. And in the moment, I got very angry that people were immediately texting because I think that sometimes people don't know what the hell the century marks are and how to delineate them, and that makes me very angry.
We have a balloon party coming up.
How did your schooling fail you?
I will say one thing to Rockio's point here is that a lot of us are in this business because we think we're always right. Do you think that's fair to say?
I think we all have opinions.
Very opinionated business.
Very opinionated.
Yes, yeah. Very opinionated.
Are we always? I'm wrong all the time.
I'm wrong all the time.
But I'm opinionated.
Yes.
But that's what we're paid to do, is to give some opinions here.
Like I'm probably wrong about the whole Stephen Matz McGreevy thing that I've been banging the drum on for the last 3 hours.
I could be wrong, and I don't really care.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me.
No, I'm not going to lose sleep over Stephen Matz making a start.
When we talk about factual things that we know happened,
yeah,
I'm not bothered. See, the thing is, like, this is perturbed. Like, this isn't going to affect the rest of my day.
I think it might.
No, not really.
You don't think so?
When I come back in here at 7 o'clock, I'll walk back in. I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot I'm mad at the people today. For the next 4 days, for the next 3 days, it's gonna be a Rockio versus the Texters kind of vibe. I feel.
I want to come in the next 3 days and have you just extremely happy. Just be so on. Yeah. You got to next 3 days. Randy's out. Randy is a ball of sunshine every single day. I need you to be a ball of sunshine when I come in here in the next 3 days. Can you do it?
Can you do it? Pretty please.
Yeah. Come on.
Even today, if we would have ended up talking about the City game, I just would have been like, yeah, they're still not going to make the playoffs.
Oh.
What'd they gain? 2 points?
I think they gained 1 point on the ninth spot. Yeah,
just one.
I'm very Eeyore this week. I don't know what it is. It's a short week. I should be happy. I don't know what it is.
You should be very happy.
You should be. All right. Well, thank you,
by the way,
rock and roll.
The answer, the person who finished first ahead of Chris Carpenter for that 2009 Cy Young was Tim Lincecum. So we have a winner in today's question, and they'll be going to the game with some Bud Bash tickets.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Rockio. Great job as always.
Pleasure.
Dan, wonderful job as always.
Oh, wonderful job. You're the best.
Thank you guys for listening. And we have a balloon party coming up next. But for now, happy Taco Tuesday, everybody. That was my best Randy impression.